Good evening. I'm Laura Jones, host of New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. Welcome to the New Jersey Gubernatorial primary debate presented by Uber. Streaming is sponsored by Stand with Crypto, and the debate is sponsored by RWJ Barnabas Health and Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. We are live at the Donald M. Payne Senior School of Technology in Newark. A special thanks to our host, Essex County. In just a few minutes, we will begin our debate between the candidates for the Democratic nomination for governor in the state of New Jersey, between Ras Baraka, Steve Fulop, Josh Gottheimer, Mikey Sherrill, and Steve Sweeney. The winner of June's primary election will go on to compete in November's general election for the seat currently held by Governor Phil Murphy. Tonight marks the final debate of the 2025 gubernatorial primaries, and we are proud to host this in-depth 2.5-hour debate focused on three key issues: affordability and taxes, education and public transportation, and development. These debates were awarded by the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission, and we've built this format to give candidates the time and space to go beyond sound bites and really dig into the substance. Joining me this evening on the panel is David Wildstein, editor of the New Jersey Globe, Micah Rasmussen, director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University, and Joey Fox, congressional correspondent for the New Jersey Globe. Our questions this evening are intended for Democratic primary voters. We developed these questions specifically with undecided voters in mind. Tonight's debate is designed to help those voters make an informed decision as they prepare to head to the polls on June 10th. And on Tuesday night, we're going to do the same for the Republicans. As to the rules tonight, panelists will direct questions to individual candidates, with each getting roughly the same number of questions. Answers are limited to 60 seconds, rebuttals to about 45 seconds, and back and forth will be at my discretion. I also have my bell standing by just in case. Time now to welcome the candidates to the stage. Now, we are asking members of the audience to refrain from making noise, including clapping and other audible reactions, with this one exception: when we introduce the candidates. And as I introduce the candidates, this is the time you all are all allowed to break the rule and show your appreciation with applause. So we now welcome Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. We'd like to, Congresswoman, our next is Congressman Mikey Sherrill. Former Senate President Steve Sweeney. Congressman Josh Gottheimer. And Jersey City Mayor Steve Fulop. All right, that's all the audience is allowed at this point. And now it's back over to us. Candidates will have 90 seconds each for an opening statement and 90 seconds for a closing statement. The order was determined through a random selection process involving all of the campaigns prior to this evening's format. We've gone over the rules of the debate and have a lot of questions to get to, so we're going to jump right into opening statement. Josh Gottheimer, you will be going first, followed by Mikey Sherrill, then Ras Baraka, Steve Sweeney, and Steve Fulop. Josh Gottheimer, the floor is yours.
Thanks for having us, and great news about the transit strike. I love Jersey. I grew up here. My dad was a small business owner. My mom was a school teacher. It was a place that usually most people could afford when I was growing up. But right now, we know the reality. People are getting crushed, nickel and dimed every which way. ARP just put out a survey that 41% of seniors are actually thinking of leaving the state because it's too expensive. We've got the second highest child care costs in the country. Starting next month, you're going to have utility bills up 40% in 1 year. Trump's tariffs are killing people and killing their retirement savings. People just can't afford to be here. And we've got, of course, the highest property taxes in the whole country. That's why I'm running as the lower cost, lower taxes governor, to make life more affordable for people, because we have to. I want everyone to be able to stay here and raise their kids here and be able to stay here when they graduate or when they're a senior. Listen, I'm going to cut property taxes by nearly 15%. I'm going to give the middle class an income tax cut. We're going to help renters with a rebate because rents are up 33% in the last 5 years. And of course, we're going to help our seniors. We're going to give them a break every year called a senior bonus if they stay here when they're 70. We can do this. I worked for Presidents Clinton and President Obama. I also beat a 7-term Republican right-wing incumbent. We're Democrats. We can take on these challenges. They're not impossible. In fact, we're the ones who have a record of getting these things done. We can solve this problem, and when I'm governor, we will, and I'd love to have your support. Thanks so much.
Mikey Sherrill, your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Mikey Sherrill. I've served this country my entire life. I took my first oath to the Constitution when I was a teenager at the Naval Academy. I served for almost 10 years as a helicopter pilot and a Russian policy officer, and then again at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and now in the United States House of Representatives. And I also have 4 teenagers. So not only have I fought my entire life for you and your families, but I'm going to continue to do that because I'm so worried about the future we're about to leave for our kids. And we know what the stakes are. We know Jack Ciattarelli has promised to doge New Jersey. Trump has said he's 100% MAGA. He said he's going to not stand up to Trump on anything and go along with everything. And we also know that he said he's going to cut funding for Planned Parenthood and put in place an abortion ban. That's why we need a different kind of leader. And you're going to hear a lot about people who've done things and are going to continue to do things, the same old, same old. But I'm going to fight the status quo. I'm going to take on entrenched interests for you and for your families, because we need to make sure we see a different future here. And I have a record of effectiveness. I've gotten a lot done here for our state, and I'll continue to do that. And I also have a record of getting out the vote in the biggest way possible. And that's what we're going to need in November, and that's what I'm going to deliver for New Jersey. So I'm asking you tonight for your vote. Please get out and vote on June 10th. Thanks so much.
Mr. Baraka, your opening statement.
Thank you. I know we have less than a month for this election, and people are still making up their minds, so hopefully we can get you to make up your mind this evening. I want you to join a group of people who have already endorsed and supported this candidacy. 32BJ, Working Families, Make the Road, People's Organization for Progress, the New Jersey Tenant Association, 450 Latino pastors. Most of the progressive organizations in New Jersey support my candidacy because they know I'm a progressive for real. I'm not just playing one on TV. I didn't just become a progressive 60 to 90 days before this primary. I've been a progressive. And people say I have these endorsements because of relationships. Yeah, that is true. I have relationships with people who need their rent lowered. I have relationships with people who can't afford to pay their mortgage and put their kid in college at the same time, whose health care is too high. I have a relationship with working people in this community, and they know that I am going to fight for rent control across the state. They know I'm going to fight for a public bank that invests in black and brown and women businesses. They know I'm going to fight for the reduction in healthcare costs, for universal healthcare for all of us. They know I'm going to fight so diversity, equity, and inclusion supercharges our economy, not destroys it. They know I'm going to fight Donald Trump, not just in words, but in actions. They are with me because they believe me. And I'm asking you not just to support me, or join me. I'm asking you to join a movement across this state and across this country to be against the worst kind of authoritarianism we've ever seen, and start by voting for Ras Baraka, June 10th, Democrat for governor.
Steve Sweeney. Steve Sweeney, your opening statement.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Globe for giving us this opportunity also. Look, my name's Steve Sweeney. I'm running for governor. I'm a union iron worker. Didn't go to college, went to apprenticeship school. But I accomplished a lot here in the state of New Jersey. And what we have to be careful about right now is, I can't tell you how many times we hear, well, we need somebody from outside to fix this place. Now, you actually need someone that knows what they're doing to fix this place, not to learn. Look, the candidates on this stage, you know, it's going to take time for them to figure it out. And that did with every single governor that I've ever met. It takes them 2 years. Well, I don't have a learning curve. And guess what? I'm the only candidate up here that did something about property taxes. I put a 2% cap in place. So in 2011, if we hadn't put that 2% property tax cap in place, Instead of $10,000, your property taxes would be $15,000 right now. What we need to do is be honest with our citizens and change the way we deliver services. It's very expensive. It's too tough. We can't afford it. And I am the one candidate that actually has a huge list of accomplishments, from the minimum wage, indexing it, to paid family leave, to women's right to choose. I've done those things, and I can do a lot more as governor. Thank you.
Steve Phillip, your opening statement.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to the NJ Globe for allowing us this 2.5-hour debate. Appreciate it. I hope people have water at home and rations. More than that, I want to take a minute and just talk a little bit about how this campaign is different. I'm not going to sit here and talk about my bio, because I think at this point, most of the voters know who's an iron worker, who's a helicopter pilot, who's a mayor. I want to talk about this moment in time and why our campaign is different. Our campaign is based on 3 things. I talk about the corruption tax that you pay in New Jersey that is unique to New Jersey. It transcends everything that we do, and it's part of the affordability crisis. And I'm in that lane alone talking about how we need to change that from North Jersey to South Jersey and how we're going to get there. I talk in more detail than anybody else, with specifics, not platitudes, saying this is what I'm going to do on transportation and this is what I'm going to do on housing. It's specific because I think that people in New Jersey need a clear vision on how we are going to move forward, because Jack Ciattarelli will be tough to beat in November. And absent a clear vision with specifics, not platitudes, we will lose in November. And then finally, we are in a unique moment in time when this state and country is at risk. And I speak with specifics about the actions I will take to stand up for New Jersey values. Our campaign is different, and I hope you stand with me on June 10th. Thank you.
All right, we thank you all for your opening remarks. Now, as I mentioned in the welcoming remarks, first, that's all from the audience that we're going to hear. We appreciate your support, but we want to make sure we keep this debate on track. The way we've structured this debate is divided into 3 sections: affordability and taxes, education, as well as public transportation and development. Joey Fox is going to start this first round with a series of questions on transportation. Joey, over to you.
As I think many viewers probably know at this point, the New Jersey transit strike is over. It was an engineer strike that shut down the state's commuter rail system for 3 days. Senator Sweeney, what do you think the state needs to do in the future to prevent similar disasters like this from happening again?
Don't wait for 5 or 6 years to settle a contract, number one. Work with the unions. There's an expiration date on contracts for a reason. So work with the unions to get that contract done in time. I do this for a living. I negotiate for a living, so I know how it works. No one wanted to go on strike. They didn't want to go on strike. I'm glad they came together to settle this thing. But we got to respect our workers too. And to ignore what happened is a problem. The other thing is, honestly, putting the right people in place to run the place. Chris Clory is a transportation expert. We finally got somebody. Look, the person that was the CEO before this was a maritime engineer. Last time I checked, buses run on roads and trains run on tracks. You know, putting people in place that know what they're doing is extremely important. So, thrilled for the commuters. I think it's great. And we got to fund transit, though. We got to make sure we continue to fund it.
Mayor Baraka, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I think we need to make sure we have dedicated funding for transit. It's not there. The corporate millionaires tax needed to not be rated. We needed to use that to continue to fund transit as it is. Stop using our capital funding to pay operating costs if we had sufficient funding. I agree that we should have settled this contract 6 years ago, that nobody should be going without a contract for that long, and that we needed the revenue and the money to be able to do that. We cannot give billionaires tax breaks and fund our infrastructure at the same time. We have to change our tax code so we have money in our budget to deal with the things that are important to us. And we have to stay at the table, so I'm glad that the governor and Chris Clory stayed at the table. I also agree that we need new leadership there. It's important that we have the right people running the agency, and we're not putting our friends and our relatives in these spots to be able to make critical decisions about what happens here in New Jersey. I would also lean into buses. I think that we should Spend a lot of time talking about buses because buses, in my mind, represent a large portion of folks in my constituency who 50% of them don't own a car. More than half make only $37,000 a year. It's important for us to invest in buses, to expand buses statewide, to make sure that we could turn this agency, not just in a train, in an agency that takes people to New York and Philadelphia, but talk about moving people around the state of New Jersey.
So, Mayor Phillip, I want to bring you into this as well with a slight update to the question. You've been endorsed by a number of transit unions in this race, although not the union that was specifically just on strike. Do you think that the state was fair in its dealings with the union during this process?
Look, being executive, I've dealt with 7 unions. I negotiate. I have some familiarity. So I don't know what's happening in the room. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, transportation in New Jersey has been neglected, and that is a failure of leadership. And there's a couple ways to fix it, and I think that the next governor has an opportunity of that. Number one is I stood alone on congestion pricing, saying that it is a healthy thing for the state of New Jersey, because if you believe in the environment, you believe in health, or you believe in mass transit from a regional standpoint, you would err on the side that working families take the buses and trains, and congestion pricing has served to benefit. Number two, the widening of the Turnpike project is a $12 million boondoggle. You need to put that directly into the system. The CBT, which we suggested originally, you need to make that perpetuity, not 5 years. I say this because we are a failure of leadership crisis moment because they haven't put money into it and thinking about a regional system. So I'm not in the rooms ultimately, and I don't think any of us are on how that looks. I'm proud to be supported by the majority of transportation unions, and I am proud to have a substantial track record around transportation.
Well, Congressman, I'm actually going to get to you on the next question, which is a continuation of this. Mayor Phillip brought up a number of different transportation-related topics, including the corporate transit fee that will fund, or that has dedicated funds for New Jersey Transit through 2028. Do you support continuing that corporate transit fee after 2028? Some of your opponents have called for that. To my knowledge, you have not specifically called for that. Do you support that policy?
I'll get that in 1 second. I do want to just say one thing. People are pissed about what happened on the transit strike because they're upset about transit overall, right? We know the summers of hell where they're stuck on the trains are delayed, buses aren't running on time because we've got old buses and old rail cars. We've got to fix both so we get the place running again. And that, I think, is critically important. And to the point of the congestion tax that Steve brought up, which I just want to address, people are hurting in our state right now. They're getting nickel and dimed. Everywhere they turn, they're feeling crushed. The idea that we would hit hardworking families like nurses and electricians and teachers with a new $9 a day tax to drive into New York is outrageous. You fight New York when they mess with Jersey families. You don't allow that to go on. And Steve should also know that actually the congestion tax would cause more pollution in northern New Jersey. There's not a lot of options, Steve, for people in a lot of places in our state for mass transit. That's why a lot of people have to drive, unfortunately. We want more mass transit, which is why we should invest in more mass transit. It's why, of course, right now you've got the corporate tax to be able to help invest more in mass transit. We got to keep investing in mass transit. It's critical for our state.
So I just want to...
Joe, he mentioned me by name. Could I respond to that, please?
Sure, but I do also want to ask him the follow-up because the ultimate question wasn't answered.
Okay. Well, everybody's going to mention me by name, so that's great. That's good. Okay.
But I want to follow up. But first, Congressman, do you support extending this corporate transit fee?
I think right now it's in place for 3 years. We'll see what the next budget calls for. Right. The bottom line is I want to make life more affordable for people, not increase taxes. That's the same old way in Jersey, right? And hitting people when Jersey and New York people drive into Jersey, New York people drive into Jersey with yet another tax. I want them coming to Jersey to eat at our restaurants, to go to our stores, and hitting people with another fee to drive into Jersey is going to drive people away from Jersey.
Listen, the corporate business tax. Corporate business tax was proposed in 2018 by Senator Loretta Weinberg and me. I'm thrilled that they passed it. But what they didn't do is constitutionally dedicate it. I know how this stuff works. What's going to happen here is in 3 years, if that money isn't dedicated, it's going into the black hole called the budget. That's the thing we got to fear about. Look, they raised it last year and took the $1 billion and used it for the budget, not for transit. We have to make sure that transit funding is in place and it's used for the purpose that it's being raised. Too much of the stuff that happens in Trenton is we raise something, we're saying it's going to be for this, and it goes over there. It's not okay. We have to lock this money up to make sure that the people that are depending on transportation, and by the way, I would love to have some in southern New Jersey. Would love to have some. I've seen buses, I've seen trains. Don't have many down by me, but would love to have some more.
Okay, so
wait,
Steve
Joe, I
Phillip, you
get
get
the-
15 seconds. And again, just to remind everybody, just mentioning the name isn't necessarily an attack.
Did he answer the
15
corporate
seconds.
business tax question?
well,
Did he answer that?
Mayor Phillip, Mayor Phillip.
Let me just say that a reasonable person could understand on congestion pricing, okay? And I get the polling says that you should be opposed to it, but every environmental group, every health group, every mass transit-oriented group says it is a good thing. Ask yourself, who drives their personal vehicle every day to Midtown Manhattan and then pays $1,500 a month to park? Is that working people? Working people take buses and trains every day.
If they don't have
and
the
we
options,
need to invest
you should
in mass
really go to
transit
other
at the
parts
end
of
the day.
Jersey besides Jersey City,
Okay.
because a lot of people don't have the option,
Josh,
man.
Josh.
That's the problem. We need to
Listen,
invest more
we
in
have the
mass
most
transit
comprehensive
to make sure we
plan
can
around
Okay,
they
we're
go somewhere
stopping,
else and have
stopping
this
right here
argument?
because we have another
Can they go
another
somewhere else and
question.
have this argument so we can have a debate?
Joey, you have your follow-up.
Yeah, so I'll bring Congresswoman Sherrill into this really quickly. Any funding that goes towards mass transit could go towards any number of goals. It could go towards capital improvements, it could go towards line expansions, it could go towards reliability improvements, so on and so forth. Everyone on the stage is going to talk about fixing New Jersey Transit. When you talk about fixing New Jersey Transit, what are the specific things that you would prioritize above all else?
So specifically, I think we have to get a dedicated source of funding to rail. The corporate business tax is what we have in place right now, but I think long-term we have to look at transit-oriented development. That's exactly what I would build out as governor. I think we need to have a statewide transportation plan so that we run the systems throughout our state. Right now, the last plan was really done in the 1800s, so we have rail lines that go in and out of the cities. We need a statewide plan that includes bus lines and, yes, the southern line from the Glassboro-Camden light rail that we need to get built out as well. And then finally, I think we need to look at what the future is of our EVs on the road. So where are we going to have EV chargers as well as truck stations? All of this needs to be determined because that will help us then build out the state as far as where we're building homes and corporate offices as well.
Right, so I would like to say that, with all due respect, I agree with transit-oriented development. It should happen. We should be building housing, but that's more of an affordable housing model. It's not going to fund transit itself. We're going to get into this tax issue. People are trying to avoid this, but this is the only way we pay for services in the state. We don't sell pies out of the back of the state house or cars. Our revenue comes from ratables. It comes from taxes, people's taxes. Either the middle class are going to pay or billionaires and millionaires are going to pay. Then they say they're going to lower your taxes but raise your fee 15%, which is really a tax. So ultimately, we're going to get the money from millionaires and billionaires to invest in transit the way it should be so it'll function for everybody.
Transit-oriented development around the world to fund transit. And I think that's
I agree
the
with that.
model that we
Steve
really
Sweeney's
have
next.
to look
Go
at.
ahead,
Just
and
not
then
gonna
Mikey
fund
Sherrill.
transit,
Steve
that's
Sweeney's
all.
next.
New Jersey was the envy of the nation in transportation in the 80s and 90s. We had the best transportation system in the country. And what's happened here is we stopped funding it. My son was in Japan not too long ago and told me if they're 40 seconds late, they're apologizing. So if Japan can do it and other places can do it, and all we need to do, we got to look around the country and get the very best model of mass transportation and bring that here and adopt it.
Yeah.
We finally got the funding. We finally have the funding for it. So now let's go get the best operations, because what we're doing sure as hell doesn't work. And too many people that are missing their meetings. Hey, I love Amtrak. I love taking the Acela. I hate having to pay for a ticket to go to New York and wind up being 3 hours late for my meeting, so my meeting gets canceled, and I paid for a train ticket.
Mikey Sherrill, 15 seconds, and then we're going to move to Micah with the next question.
I just was going to address the transit-oriented development. That is one of the ways, in fact, Japan funds their transit system. So I do think we can do both, the affordable housing, which we need to build, but also have those ratables around those transit hubs feed into our transit system as a dedicated source of funding.
Micah Rasmussen.
Congressman Gottheimer, given staffing shortages and equipment failures at Newark Airport, would you tell New Jerseyans to use a different airport instead right now? Would you let your family fly out of that airport?
Absolutely. Listen, it's a great airport, and it's key to our economy and so many jobs and so many great people come in and out of there every single day. But we've got two big challenges, as you know, right, that we're facing that we got to deal with and that I've called on to fix. One, we've got a shortage of air traffic controllers right now in the region. We should have 60, we have 19. So I've called to get more back, said to the Secretary of Transportation, you gotta move people from other parts of the country here, and there's military air traffic controllers we also can move here to get things moving again, and you gotta fix the technology. We know we got a lot of copper wires, especially that are being used, and we can fix those. And by the way, we need to vote for emergency funding right now. Many of us have already supported a bunch of funding, but there's more that's needed to fix our air traffic controllers, what they use every single day, all that equipment. But the bottom line is Newark is a phenomenal place. We should not send anybody anywhere else. There are delays, and by the way, United Airlines and the other airlines have a responsibility to make sure they're keeping on top of it and telling people their delays. People can get their refunds back. That's critically important, and get refunds and make sure we let people know. But people should keep flying out of Newark.
Mikey Sherrill, Russ Broca, Steve Phillip. Go ahead, 45.
I have grave concerns about Newark Airport right now. Would I let my family fly out of it? I unwillingly did. My daughter just flew out of it today. It was a nervous wreck. She almost missed her connection because of the delays. I know Secretary of Transportation Duffy did not let his wife fly out of it, which I think is a huge concern. We have got to address this problem. I am demanding that Duffy surge personnel into it and surge technology there, move them back to Long Island if that's what it takes. But right now, it is unacceptable what's going on in Newark. It is harming our economy. It's harming people's lives right now as they're trying to fly out to see their parents and their kids. I'm furious at what's going on, and unfortunately, this is what happens when you doge the government, and that's what Jack Ciattarelli says he's going to do. So we should all be very concerned about that.
Russ Broca.
Well, I think the number one issue is safety, and that's what people are talking about. I'm glad the congressman said that Newark is a great place to be. Spend some more time here. The reality is we keep talking about the economy, the same thing we did during COVID, right? The economy is important, but safety is first, right? The fact that they're delaying and canceling flights is because it's unsafe in the airspace. We have to slow these planes down. We have to put space between them. And I agree, we need to push people to hire air traffic controllers immediately, fix radar systems and infrastructure immediately so we can have a long-term fix. But people are traveling out of Newark tonight. And tonight, we have to make sure that we have planes that are safe in the air. So we need space between when the planes are coming in and when they're leaving out. And we need less airplanes flying out of the airport until we get this under control. The economy has to suffer for people's lives.
All right,
Senator,
Steve Phillip.
Joey,
I'm going to stay on the same topic. I'm staying on the same topic. I just want to know, and I'm going to go to Senator Sweeney first and then to you, Mayor Phillip. We're talking a lot about potential sort of federal level solutions and demanding that Secretary Duffy do this. What are is there anything that can be done?
Can I answer that? Wait, Joey,
Just
can I go back to, it was on me. It was on me. It was on me.
Steve Phillip,
Okay,
45.
so let me start by saying that I would fly out of Newark Airport, and I started to book a flight today for post June 11th with my wife, so I am committed to that, number one. Number two is, I think that Phil Murphy's tone here is entirely too conciliatory, too kind to Donald Trump. This didn't happen under Joe Biden, and it's a direct product of Donald Trump's rhetoric around DEI and the FAA, and we should be pointing that out because they're directly correlated. With regards to what the governor can do, I will point out that the governor is responsible partially with Governor Hochul for the Port Authority, and there are 3 airports. There's JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, and you should ask yourself the question, why doesn't LaGuardia and JFK have any of these problems? Only Newark does.
Because they have less flights.
Wait a second. The governor should be using leverage to share resources between the others in order to move it forward. Should be more vocal, clearly, an actionable step with the Port Authority.
And honestly, with all due respect, this is a federal issue. We need Congress to get something done here, right? I mean, we're saying, we're asking, we got to do more than ask. Drag their asses into a hearing, right? Drag their asses into a hearing and find out why the hell this is going on. This is dangerous, but you know something? Writing letters and it's got to be more than doing that. You have to stand up and push back. Look, Washington, there's only 2 more Republicans than Democrats down there. Let's start breaking their you-know-whats. Let's do it.
No, I
it's
don't
time.
know what. Tell me.
This is a family show, Mayor.
Listen, Mayor, when my passion comes out at times. But honestly, the state of New Jersey is limited on this. This is a federal issue. This didn't happen, as they said, under Joe Biden. We have to be the resistance to what's going on in Washington to get resources back here to fix this.
Okay, Congressman Gottheimer, yeah.
Yeah, Steve, you're right, which is exactly why we've demanded, and actually you've seen some response now from Duffy, actually putting in more delays, to Ross's point, between the flights, which is why there are more delays. But nobody should go up if it's unsafe. Of course not, which is why you've got all these delays in between. My point, which is critically important, is, and as governor, we need to support Newark Airport just like we got to support Newark. You don't walk away on such a great economic engine for our economy. It's critical. It's the busiest airspace. We got to run it. We got to demand action, which is actually now, as you probably saw, Duffy is now starting to act based on our demands.
Delays don't cut it. People shouldn't suffer.
Of course not.
We should not let people suffer. He's not responding. If he is responding, he's not responding quick enough. We need more traffic controllers and more investment in here, and we need it now.
Mikey Sherrill, 45 seconds.
Yeah, so this is in part a nationwide problem as well. So that's why as governor, I would make sure that we are pushing into the federal system to train more air traffic controllers and fast track them through the Oklahoma facility, which you can do in partnership with New Jersey schools. So I'd build out those programs right away as well to have a dedicated source of air traffic controllers in our state.
So we've now covered planes and we've covered trains. I'd like to get to automobiles. So Mayor Fulop, you have criticized New Jersey's lawsuit against New York City's congestion pricing plan, and you have proposed a potential New Jersey-based congestion pricing plan of your own. I mean, what do you say to a voter who is concerned about the amount of money that it costs to get into New York City and doesn't think that more tolls on this end of the river will do anything to help them?
Yeah, so let me start by saying that I have the most comprehensive plan around transportation. I started the largest microtransit system in the country in Jersey City. We've been extensive on complete streets, on Vision Zero, the first in the state, New Jersey. It is the reason that the Philadelphia Inquirer endorsed me, the most northern candidate they endorsed for South Jersey, largely because of our transportation plan. Congestion pricing, what I say about it is something that Jack Ciattarelli actually took from me because it is a good idea. He talks about reverse congestion pricing to put New York back at the table.
Brag about that.
The reality of the situation is that you need to create leverage to create a regional transportation system because this back and forth between New York is not healthy for anybody. And the truth is that you need to think of it more broadly. It is the reason that congestion pricing has been successful up till now. If you look at mass transit times, if you look at the environment, and I think that there's a route here ultimately to improve this. I want to say one other thing. We have plate readers on every entry and exit into Jersey City because the technology today allows you to exempt whoever. If you want to exempt a person with purple hair with the driver's license G starting,
Steve
you can
Sweeney's
do
next.
that.
Josh Gottheimer, Mikey
Honestly,
Sherrill. Steve Sweeney.
reverse congestion pricing is the dumbest thing I ever heard of ever, to be honest with you.
No.
With all due respect.
Amen.
Because what's going to happen is
I gotta respond.
now you're getting that. Yeah, I want you to respond
I
and
will.
explain why it's okay
Yes.
to tax people both ways.
Yes.
Congestion pricing is wrong. We should be fighting it. We're in New Jersey. Our people that are driving to New York are paying that penalty. More people go into New York than out of New York. So, Steve, when you say we're going to do reverse congestion pricing, you're not exempting. It's interstate commerce. You cannot exclude. You cannot exclude New Jersey drivers if you're charging a tax. Whoever did your policy, didn't do the research.
Okay, wait, Josh Gottheimer, hold on for a second. Let him respond.
Let me say
because
this. You absolutely can exclude people on it.
You can.
It is the same. Yes, you can. It is the same thing that I suggest that Jack Ciattarelli took from me because the goal of it is creating leverage because you need a regional transportation system. And at the end of the day, it is the most viable solution to get there.
Josh Gottheimer, you're
Excuse
next.
me.
Mikey Sherrill, Rosborough.
Thank you. As the person who's been leading the fight against the congestion tax now for more than 5 years, let me tell you this. People are getting crushed in Jersey, Steve. It's $18 to go over the bridge or through the tunnels. Then you're going to hit them with another $9 a day. That's $4,000 a year. People who are nurses, teachers, cops, firefighters can't afford this. We're killing people. And New York just sticks it to us like they always do. And we should be fighting back against them every single day when they do that. Secondly, the MTA. They admitted in their own reports, and I encourage you to read them, that this will lead to more pollution in northern New Jersey, not less pollution. So you're killing our kids with more asthma. You're killing people in their pocketbooks. We have to fight this every step of the way. We're doing it in the courts. We're going to win. You got the administration now deciding to come on board to help fight it, which I welcome. And obviously Governor Murphy is. We got to fight this thing every single day. People are getting crushed, middle-class families. We can't hit them with yet another tax.
Mikey
She
Sherrill,
can go.
Res
Yeah,
Baraka.
yeah, thank you.
As governor of New Jersey, you simply can't be for a congestion price that takes money out of the pockets of New Jerseyans and funds New York infrastructure and transportation, especially given the need we have here for our own transportation infrastructure in New Jersey. It just doesn't make any sense.
Res Baraka.
But before we go on, can we just make a deal not to mention Jack Chitterelli's name at this debate? But I do want to say, that's pretty funny. I do want to say that
But it's true.
I think that, honestly, that the idea is a little mean-spirited, right? A little vindictive, and I think ultimately the MTA did call Newark. They did call us. We were supposed to have a meeting with them before Murphy joined with Donald Trump. I don't know why that happened, but they called us and said that they would give us a specific amount of money to deal with the air, the particulate matter in the air that would be created because of congestion pricing. Now, I didn't have an opportunity to have a discussion with them in full, but they did say that to me in specific. Finally, I think if we really focus on mass transit, then we don't have to have this discussion about congestion pricing. New York and New Jersey could get together. I know we like bickering and fighting. If we actually sat in a room and figured out how to expand transit in New York and New Jersey, we could figure this problem out without saying, I'm bigger than you, I'm badder than you, I'm better than you, I breathe fire, I eat trees.
So Mayor Baraka, I've got a quick follow-up for you on that, which is, you want to get in a room with New York, you want to hash this out. Would you seek to continue New Jersey's current lawsuit against New York? Or do you think that would, pose
Absolutely,
well?
as leverage, for sure. I think ultimately the objective is to get us in the room, to talk about how to raise dollars for MTA and New Jersey Transit, how to figure out how our Turnpike Authority and everybody else that are part of our transportation infrastructure here and the transportation infrastructure in New York can figure out how to expand mass transit, right? How do we do this together? How do we use Port Authority as a part of that as well and not take each other to court and fight each other about whose tolls are the biggest and whose tolls are the most expensive? I think it's ridiculous and silly.
Joey, can I respond since the focal point was me, which I like, actually, okay? Let me say that's a good sign. That's a good sign. But the reality of the conversation is that the lawsuit has not worked. And when there was an opportunity to get $150 million at the end of the process, we squandered that. And had you had that $150 million into the system, maybe you wouldn't have had a strike. Every mass transit advocate, every environmental advocate, every health advocate says that I am on the right side of this issue. And I get it, the politics of it. We could all test the polling and say the sound bites, but the technology allows you to exempt whoever you want. And New Jersey people would not be taxed twice for obvious reasons.
I'm sorry, that
It
is
is
not
accurate.
true.
It is accurate.
It's
It
not
is
true.
accurate.
It's not true.
Listen, I know
Steve Sweeney,
people.
then Josh Gottheimer.
I know some
Again,
people
45.
will say things on the stage that are not true.
It
This is
true.
absolutely not true.
Okay.
It's interstate commerce. Look it up. It's interstate commerce. But most importantly, the only way we're going to get leverage with New York, honestly, is when you deal with a bully, you punch them right in the nose and they pay attention. That's how you deal with a bully. New York is bullying New Jersey, abusing our citizens that are driving. By the way, what we should be doing is going to these New York companies, finding out, we got their tax information, saying, why don't you come to New Jersey? Why don't you come here? We'll do the incentives to bring your businesses into New Jersey. So, like I said, you can say a lot of things. Interstate commerce is really clear. You can't tax some and not others.
Wholeheartedly
Josh Gottheimer
disagree.
first. Josh Gottheimer.
Just for facts, of the $150 million, they offered us under $10 million. So they're sticking their hands in our pockets for $1 billion a year in New York. Not a nickel except $8 million is actually going to go to Jersey for our families. It's ridiculous to keep ripping us off. And the bottom line is we should say to Port Authority, we've had this cooperative relationship for 100 plus years together. Why aren't we actually continuing to work together? New York just can't stick it to our families, crush our middle class families when they want to give us a few crumbs to deal with pollution and to deal with what people are dealing with. That's totally wrong. And by the way, I think Steve's right. We're going to get more jobs here. We should fight every day to bring more jobs here. New York rips us off every day. It's time to stick it to them, fight them, and we should fight them. And this is the case one of where we should fight them.
We can disagree.
15
we can
seconds.
disagree, but the reality is that I have more endorsements from transit-oriented unions than anybody up here.
What's
I have,
that mean?
wait a second. We said earlier that the entire South Jersey Philly Inquirer was based on my transportation ideas and suggestions. You were saying up here, we could disagree on what's true and what's not true, but there are independent qualifiers in this conversation.
I got to answer to that.
No.
There's
15
nothing
seconds,
in your
and then
plan.
we're going back to
There's
Joey.
nothing in
Of
your
course
plan to address transportation in South Jersey.
Of course there is.
You might have put light rail in recently.
No,
when
from
I
day
look
one.
at your Steve, I read your plan. You said
Steve.
read my plan. I read it. There
Steve.
was nothing for South Jersey.
Steve,
Okay, and on that note, we're going back to Joey Fox.
So I do want to throw in one additional important transit-related question. Mayor Fulop brought it up briefly before. The Turnpike widening and bridge replacement program, or development project that's underway in Jersey City and Bayonne. Congresswoman Sherrill, if you were elected, would you seek to reverse that project, or would you keep it going as it's currently set?
Well, if we just talk about the first part of that project, because the other part is years in advance, but that is replacing the bridge. And that's necessary. That bridge is 70 years old. It's got an F rating, and an idea that you're somehow going to repair it in place results in shutting down lanes, which is going on now, which of course has cars and trucks idling on that bridge and dumping pollution into the surrounding areas. So I would not be stopping replacement of that bridge at all, no.
So I have to opine on this. This is where we diverge. This affects Newark more than any other municipality up here. Those trucks come through our municipality. It'll put more particulate matter in the air. A quarter of our children have asthma in this city. Expanding those roads on the bridge and outside of the bridge brings more trucks and traffic. I asked the folks for a study that proved that didn't happen. They could not produce it because it does not exist. I don't agree that we should expand those roads like that, and we have all that money that should be invested in buses, in my view, and begin to repair rail at the same time. That's what should happen immediately. I don't know about. I think we can repair the bridge. Without expanding it the way they're trying to expand it. I don't think it's an either or zero-sum game. I think we can do both of those things, and we need to do both of those things without giving more asthma to kids in the city of Newark.
Listen, no one knows about building. Listen, no. And one thing I think I got to get on this one. No one knows more about bridges than me. I do it for a living. We build bridges. Trying to repair that bridge will cost more than the new project. It will cost more. It's going to create more congestion, as the Congresswoman said, because you got to shut lanes down. So listen, I've taken that bridge more times than I like to talk about. It's always a bottleneck. It's always slowing things up. It's creating lots of pollution. And not all of Hudson County is against it. I know the mayor of Bayonne thinks it would help his city in a great way.
I'm sure. but they didn't
15
produce that.
seconds, and then we're going to move on to David.
I want to go back to, and I agree, it's not an either or. I am an advocate for the safety improvements. I think that's very important. It's the $12 billion additional on top of that. From the beginning, it started as a way to alleviate traffic going into the Holland Tunnel. And when we pushed back that it didn't make sense, because if you widen it to 20 lanes, the Holland Tunnel is still 2 lanes at the end of the day. And when we pointed that out, they said, well, now it's about truck traffic. And that would beg the question, then why are you looking to extend it beyond Bayonne ultimately? And the reason is because it's an unnecessary project. That dollars should be allocated to mass transit both in South Jersey and the Bergen extension of the light rail.
Can I get
Over
people
to
to say
David
that they care
Wildstein.
about the asthma in Newark?
David Wildstein.
Okay.
This is why we have a 2.5-hour debate.
Right.
I'm sorry to
Don't give him
hamper
that.
on all the fun that you're having here, but I want to go to development. I want to go to housing and ask you a question that has been around for as long as I can remember in New Jersey. I'll start with you, Congresswoman Sherrill. If you're elected governor,
Your mic's not on.
Microphone.
my mic not on?
No.
Is that- okay. Okay, then how about if I talk really loudly? Now I'm good? Okay. If you're elected governor, Congresswoman, who will have the final say on development issues? Will it be state government or will it be local elected officials?
It will be me as governor, state government, in conjunction with local officials as we have buy-in to the plan. Because what we have to do is build more houses in this state. You're never going to make New Jersey more affordable if you don't make housing more affordable. So everyone from the woman who had retired in Patterson, who now had to go back to work because she couldn't afford her rental price, to the couple who loses bid after bid after bid because they can't afford any home in New Jersey. And that's why, as we build out, we've got to do several things. We have to make the first-time home buyer program more robust. Right now, it's only $15,000, and we know the average home, if it's $500,000 here in New Jersey, unaffordable, but that would be a $100,000 down payment. So that first-time home buyers program is inadequate. We also have to cut down red tape, especially with the state permitting. So bring the state permitting organizations together, make sure you end the redundancies, set deadlines, and that's exactly what I would do as governor, deadlines on how long it's going to take them to get through, and then finally ensure that the local permitting process has technical support from the state on zoning, on engineering, et cetera, so that we can all work together to get these houses built.
Listen,
Sweeney,
the
then
governor,
Josh
the
Gottheimer,
governor, the
45.
governor of Colorado just did an executive order that I thought was amazing, because the problems he's having, we're having. When we leave it to local control, it's not getting built. So what I say is, after 4 years, if you're not spending your money, the state can take the money. The state can buy a piece of land and the state can build the housing. Now, we should absolutely reward governments that are doing the right thing. We should give extra TTF money for communities that are doing the right thing. We should provide more tax relief for communities that are doing the right things. But for the towns that aren't doing it, for the cities that are not doing it, in towns, it's not okay. It's too expensive to buy a house because home rule is controlling the decisions. And as governor, I would take the funding from these towns if they're not going to use it. If they're not going to use it, hey, it's been 50 years since Mount Laurel. When's time up?
Josh Gottheimer.
Thank you. We know that rents are up 33% in the last few years, which is brutal for people. And part of the reason is it takes us 5 to 7 years to build anything in Jersey. In other states, it takes 2 to 3. So we're 220,000 units short of where we should be. That's why I'm giving families and folks a tax cut for property taxes and a rental rebate. But what we really need to do is get more built near mass transit, in abandoned office parks. And what we should do is change the way we approve things. Put all the players at the table, the local, the county, the state, at one time. Other states do this. And so they have one conversation in the beginning, and then they have a clock, right? A shot clock to actually get things approved. Have the conversation once versus taking years. One person has it, then the next person has it, and it takes years to approve anything, and the costs just keep going up for folks. We've got to change the way our bureaucracy works in Jersey, crush the bureaucracy, and get things built faster for people, like on abandoned office parks, like in abandoned government buildings. We can do this.
G. Phillip, you were next.
Yeah, I think when you get into the conversation about home rule, you get into a tricky place here. And I think it's important why you need a mayor as a governor. You haven't had one for 20 years, and understanding these local municipalities. The reality is that people choose to live in certain suburban towns because of their choice of what they like there. So trend overriding every aspect is problematic. But there certainly are places around mass transit, New Jersey transit property, that the state should control the zoning. And the state needs to do a better job of creating transparency around who is committing the necessary steps to move housing forward. And then Trent needs to follow those with funding. When a mayor says they need more school or infrastructure funding, that is valid. And that is what the governor needs to do in order to actually move this stuff forward.
Raz Baraka.
We need some consistency. We can't be against home rule in one debate and for home rule in the next debate either. We need to declare a state of emergency on housing. The governor needs to do that immediately. The policy should be driven by the state of New Jersey, by the governor, with the support of local building trades, support of community housing advocates, and local elected officials to sit at the table to decide how much housing they want to build in the next 2 or 3 years. I would say 15 to 20,000 units of housing, identify places to build it, transit first, and begin building that housing immediately. We begin to empower community development organizations to build low-income and moderate housing and affordable housing in communities where big buildings can't go, and empower community-based organizations to do that kind of housing in those communities with with clinics at the bottom of it, with retail at the bottom of it. This is exactly what needs to happen across the state of New Jersey. And if we had a public bank, we can invest our money in that bank and begin to create a fund so we can begin to affect the market for low income and affordable housing in the state of New Jersey. Right now, the market is only for luxury housing, and that's a fact. And
So,
anybody can say that they built
David-
affordable housing in New Jersey,
David's going to,
but building affordable housing in a city where the income is $37,000 a year means that that's real affordable housing that we must build in the state of New Jersey. I think they should take cues from what we're doing in Newark and begin to do it statewide.
okay, we're going to get Mikey Sherrill, Steve Sweeney for 15 seconds, and David has a follow-up. 15. We want to make sure we get to everything.
Let me just do a quick follow. As you're going to follow up, I'd like you to address whether this should be done by executive order by the governor's office, or whether this should be done in conjunction with the legislature in terms of strengthening the state's power on making sure there's housing.
Well, I think I'll start here with first. I want to piggyback on what Senator Sweeney said about Colorado, because that is an example of a blue state that's doing very innovative work. I think we see across the country too many blue states seem to be unwilling to cut through some of the permitting and regulatory process. Colorado has built over the past 3 years, since 2022, has built twice the amount of housing per capita as New Jersey has. And while New Jersey's home prices have gone up by 50% over the past 5 years, Colorado's have actually gone down by about 20%. So that is why this is such an important thing. As far as executive order, I think you start with the legislator. Look, I'm a legislator. I think that's what I have a gift for, is building out broad coalitions of support on bringing people together around the issues we care about. But certainly, I also think we do have a housing emergency in the state that we have to address.
Listen, look, I believe in giving towns the opportunity. The problem is we've had 50 years of asking, and it's not happening. You know what I mean? So we've said pretty please too many times. So I said earlier, what Colorado did, I would incentivize towns that are doing the right things, cities that are doing the right things, reward them for doing the right things. But after that, I'm not going to ask anymore, because they're not doing it. It's 50 years. 50 years on affordable housing. So asking permission, no. I would sign an executive order if these communities don't start building the housing that they're required to do, because young people are leaving. I had a young person come up to me the other day at an event and said, I'm going to have to leave New Jersey. I was in Philadelphia. He said, because I can't afford a house here. That's not what we want.
You have 15.
The question is by executive action? Absolutely. This is not working. The system is not working. It's broken. People are getting crushed. Kids are leaving, as Steve said. Seniors are leaving because they can't afford it. A governor's got to cut through. And by the way, the governor's also supposed to be responsible to make sure there's water, energy, roads are fixed in these communities that are growing, and help the locals handle this. We can't keep doing it this way, guys. It's broken, and we've got to fix it. And the governor's got to step up and help fix it.
I actually agree with Josh Gottheimer. I'm surprised.
You should read my plans, too,
let me say
JoshForJersey.com, man.
Let me say this. Let me say this. I think executive order is very important, in particular around the transit-oriented development. The New Jersey Transit orphan properties, which are throughout the state of New Jersey, you start with an executive order right out of the gate. It should be in the first 30 or 60 days, because you don't have a lot of time to get those properties going. So yes, executive order, particularly around transit-oriented development, particularly around New Jersey Transit-owned properties, to get that development started.
One more.
Yeah, and Mayor follow-up. I want to do just a quick, maybe a fact check on this. The Turnpike extension dollars are from bonds and bondholders.
Yep.
Can they be reallocated to mass transit?
They've been reallocated in other states. Other governors have done that, actually. You saw Wes Moore do that in Maryland, the same sort of structure. As soon as he got in there, he reallocated dollars from highways towards mass transit. Same sort of structure.
All right, but the question is, what do the bondholder covenants say now?
I mean, I would take the steps. I believe that we can do that. And yes, I would take the appropriate steps to do that. And let me say this. You asked the question, that there is going to be litigation around that turnpike widening, okay? It's early on in the process as far as the approvals and the environmental studies. So there still is plenty of time before those dollars are allocated.
And David, we need to do both. I don't know why it's either or. We need to invest in the bridge. We need to do that project. And we just recently got $1 billion into New Jersey Transit. That's a good thing. We need to dedicate it. We need to invest in transit so that it's reliable and it runs right. But to say either or, what are we going to do when that bridge fails? It's an F rating right now. So we're going to repair it. Again, I told you, this is the one area I don't think anybody can challenge me on because I worked on bridges. I know what it takes. It will cost more to repair it than to replace it. And then guess what? That's billions of dollars that we've now taken away from the bridges to put on mass transportation. So how are we going to pay for the bridge when we want to go repair it?
Well, I asked those people,
Brackett, then we're
I
going to
met with
Reagan.
those folks, I asked them for those, that data, they couldn't provide it. They couldn't provide the fact that it would cost more. They couldn't provide the fact that our children wouldn't be affected by trucks coming through our community. So that's where we diverge, that's where I disagree, that we have to take money to invest in transit. It's broken, we have to repair it, we have to add more buses. We need to be talking about public transit. Our conversation should be about public transit. Affordable housing and public transit go together. You can't have those separate conversations. If you build housing for people that are not next to transit, then they can't get to work, they can't get to the supermarket, they can't get to the economy. Therefore, you're making their plight more difficult. You have to have two of those discussions in the same way. Expanding transit and expanding housing is a plan that has to have to overlap with one another, right? It can't be separate. And I would support an executive order immediately because housing is an emergency in this state.
All right, we're going to wrap on transit and development, and we're going to take a very quick commercial break before diving into our next topic, which is education. Stay with us as we continue the New Jersey gubernatorial primary debate presented by Uber, live from the Donald M. Payne Senior School of Technology in Newark. Stay with us.
Thanks. How long do you have?
Everything is getting more expensive. Rent, groceries, insurance. Uber is essential to my passengers. Insurance has gone up. This is hard for people.
Join our fight to protect your access to affordable rides.
If you have chronic joint or back pain, this is probably where you spend your time. Might we suggest a better destination that's close to home? RWJ Barnabas Health, where orthopedic surgeons designed the surgical implants that are now used around the world, and where you'll be cared for by the same doctors that treat professional athletes and rising stars. Get back to what you've been missing. Orthopedic care. Do it right. Here, RWJ Barnabas Health.
Today, 52 million Americans own cryptocurrency.
We are the pioneers,
the visionaries,
the builders of a growing movement
with the power to democratize the old economic models
and create a world economy of the people,
for the people,
and by the people.
We are crypto.
This is the moment for us to make our voices heard.
We are the catalyst that will create a new world.
With our numbers,
with our voices,
with our votes.
We are crypto.
Karen's about to retire. Here's what's going into her retirement.
There's us. She raised us on our own.
10 years as my roller derby wife.
Three schools she's opened.
She's a mother.
I think we turned out all right.
She's a friend.
Our mothers could tell stories.
She's a teacher.
She may be retiring, but she's not done.
I'm never gonna stop.
Retirement is the sum of your life's work. Now what? Get income for life and protect your life's work with Prudential.
Every child deserves a great public school that meets their needs. That's why many families take advantage of charter schools as an option that's free, public, and open to all. See what's possible. Find a charter school near you.
Hello, I'm Ferlanda Fox-Nixon, President and CEO of NRBP, the premier chamber of commerce serving the greater Newark region. Our mission is to strengthen the region's business community through connections, resources, and advocacy. From member-exclusive opportunities to public events and more, NRBP helps businesses of all sizes grow, engage, and succeed. Join us at NRBP, where business meets opportunity.
Everything is getting more expensive. Rent, groceries, insurance. Uber is essential to my passengers. Insurance has gone up. This is hard for people.
Join our fight to protect your access to affordable rides.
If you have chronic joint or back pain, this is probably where you spend your time. Might we suggest a better destination that's close to home? RWJ Barnabas Health, where orthopedic surgeons designed the surgical implants that are now used around the world, and where you'll be cared for by the same doctors that treat professional athletes and rising stars. Get back to what you've been missing. Orthopedic care. Do it right. Here, RWJ Barnabas Health.
Today, 52 million Americans own cryptocurrency.
We are the pioneers.
The visionaries.
The builders of a growing movement
with the power to democratize the old economic models
And create a world economy of the people.
For the people.
And by the people.
We are crypto.
This is the moment for us to make our voices heard.
We are the catalyst that will create a new world.
with our numbers,
With our voices.
With our votes.
We are crypto.
Karen's about to retire. Here's what's going into her retirement.
There's us. She raised us on our own.
10 years as my roller derby wife.
Three schools she's opened.
She's a mother.
I think we turned out all right.
She's a friend.
Our mothers could tell stories.
She's a teacher.
She may be retiring, but she's not done.
I'm never gonna stop.
Retirement is the sum of your life's work. Now what? Get income for life and protect your life's work with Prudential.
Every child deserves a great public school that meets their needs. That's why many families take advantage of charter schools as an option that's free, public, and open to all. See what's possible. Find a charter school near you.
Welcome back. We are live at the Donald M. Payne Senior School of Technology in Newark with the New Jersey Gubernatorial primary debate presented by Uber, and I'm Laura Jones. Now, a few reminders as we're coming back to this next next segment. We're going to give each candidate the opening question. They're going to get a minute to respond. And I see everybody wants to jump in, and everybody's going to get 45 seconds. So I see you. I'm going to point and do the best I can. Everybody's going to get 40 seconds. If there's an attack or the other back and forth, we've reserved the right to do the other 30 seconds. Believe it or not, we're actually keeping pretty close to on time with this debate here. But before we get back to our panelists, we have a question from a student from here at Payne School. That was submitted to us, and I'm going to read that question. And the first question, we're going to go to Steve Fulop on this one. Everybody's going to have actually 30 seconds to respond to this one. And we're just going to go right down the line. Everybody's going to get to answer the same question from the students. All right, question from the student is, what policies will you implement to attract and retain high-quality teachers? Steve Fulop, that question goes to you first.
Well, I think, first of all, in order to retain high-quality teachers, we need to do a couple of things. We need to roll back some of the changes that Christie made, particularly around the tier system. That's number one. The healthcare changes that Christie made are problematic as well, because you cannot attract teachers into the profession under those constraints that were created then. It might have sounded good at the time, but I think looking back over the last 15 years, you see it's problematic. Finally, I think we need to be investing in our school structures. You have schools throughout the state of New Jersey that don't have air conditioning, that are outdated facilities. We need to update them, because I think reasonably, nobody will want to be in an environment that is not clean, that is not air conditioning, that doesn't feel safe, that doesn't feel modern. So I think those 3 steps that you can do to improve teacher retention and attract new teachers into the profession.
Josh Gottheimer.
Thanks. My mom was an educator. We got the best schools in America and New Jersey. I'm very proud of that, and that's how we get a lot of people to want to come to Jersey and stay in Jersey. But we got to pay our teachers well. And that means we got to bring COLAs back. We actually pay them and make sure that they can afford to stay here. We can't change deals on them midstream because, listen, our kids, our future, and they rely on the best educators. So that means whether you're talking about universal pre-K, which I believe in, or all-day kindergarten, we've got to have the best physical structures for them, but most importantly, every kid in Jersey should get a great education no matter where they live or where they're from.
Steve Sweeney.
We need to pay them better. I agree with Josh. These are very, very intelligent people that go into any other field and make a lot of money. I'm proud that we actually fixed the health care. We did a thing called Chapter 44 where taxpayers and the teachers actually pay less now than they were paying. So again, paying teachers what they're worth, we couldn't pay them. It's just too much money. But we do need to pay them better than what we're paying them right now, because they have a lot of choices and they're choosing to educate our children. Because they're educating our children, we got to make sure we take care of them and their families.
Mikey Sherrill.
So during COVID, I had 4 school-age kids, and it was pretty horrible for families, and it was really tough on teachers. And I heard them, because my kids were on their computers at the kitchen table, month after month after month, doing really yeoman's work to try to keep kids engaged, and they're burnt out. And that's why we really need to support them with new teachers. In Lacey Township, K through 12, every class is over 30 kids. That's too much. So that's why I would have certificate programs for long-term substitutes, pay student teachers so they can afford to go into education, and then have on-ramps for teaching in programs like high-intensity tutoring, so that those people who come out to tutor our kids who find they love teaching already can have a pathway to becoming a teacher in our school system.
Maris Brackla.
I was an educator for 23 years in Newark Public Schools. Obviously, the first thing is increase teacher pay, fully fund the pension, restore cost of living increases, get rid of the tier system at the same time, make all schools community schools to provide teachers with the scaffolding and the support that they need in the morning and the afternoon so they can spend their time educating students and not dealing with problems that students have. So you need to build community schools there. You need to give teachers more control over staff development. They need to be involved in their own staff development to create what they need in a classroom. And lastly, this over-reliance on state tests, we need to begin to move away from that to give teachers more control in their classroom so they can begin to judge their work on the kids from moving them from one place to another, not this unrealistic goal that people put on them.
Okay, we are obviously on the topic of education. I ask the audience to hold their applause, please. We're on the topic of education for this next segment. Mike Rasmussen from the Revich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider is going to take the first question here and the lead on this particular topic, education.
Congresswoman Cheryl, last week Mayor Baraka said education should be paid for by the income tax rather than the property tax. Do you agree that it would make sense to pay for a state constitutional right to a thorough and efficient education from the broader statewide tax base?
So what I think we need to do as far as property taxes is just combine some of the schools. We have certain towns that don't even run K through 12 schools, and they have the whole administrative cost and facility burden that every other administrative cost has for full school systems. I'll also tell you that right now we're going to see our student population go down because in 2007 that was a baby boom, and those kids are graduating high school. I know that because I have a son who's graduating high school. And that's why, these overhead costs that towns are facing, it's just too much. That's why we have to combine some of the administrative cost of our school system. I would start there, and I think in that way we can get property taxes down while at the same time continuing to fund our school systems.
Well, wait a minute. Before we do that, could I do the follow-up, which is, I'm just asking where you think education should be paid for. The statewide base, where it can be spread out among the entire state, or town-by-town basis where you have differences in what towns can afford?
So I actually like a county-based system more, and so moving as much as, moving several like occupational schools to a county-based system, magnet schools to a county-based system, a school like this that we're in tonight here at the Essex County Technical School, the Donald Payne Essex County Technical School. This is the kind of school that can really draw students from all over the county and defray a lot of the cost of our municipalities.
Okay, Steve Fulop, and then Mayor
I
Rasmussen.
think shared services is obviously a part of the conversation. We've done a lot in Jersey City around that. First of all, you need to modernize the school funding formula. It hasn't been updated since 2008, and I think it needs to be updated and take into consideration school districts that have larger diversity, ESL, and funded accordingly around that. Secondly, special education needs to come out of municipality by municipality and needs to be funded by the state. You'll give a better product to the parents and lower property taxes ultimately. And I think those are two important steps that you could take right out of the gate in order to kind of move this conversation forward without shifting away from property taxes entirely to income taxes. And of course, I want to say you do need to raise taxes on the highest earners, without saying.
Mayor Rasmussen.
The state Supreme Court said this, not me. They said it was illegal to fund our schools through property taxes alone, which is why we subsidize. That's what Abbott versus Burke was about, which is why we subsidize cities like Newark and Jersey City and all these places get subsidy because of the property tax. All of these cities are not Abbott districts anymore, so the school funding formula is broken. The people who live in those buildings in Jersey City, those kids they don't have kids in those schools. They come from still marginalized communities that are in those neighborhoods that are losing money and resources because the state is pulling back funding because they still have the old funding formula. Yeah, it needs to change. We need to be doing the same thing the federal government does when they do free and reduced lunch. They find out the incomes of the people in the school and they fund schools based on that. Now we can have a variation of that, but that should lead us. It shouldn't be the tail, it should be the head.
Okay, Steve Sweeney, then Josh Gottheimer.
And thank you. The school funding formula was updated in 2008. Actually was implemented in 2018 to make sure the money followed the child because the money wasn't getting to where the kids were. It was woefully out of whack. That being said, it should be reevaluated every 5 years. And I agree with Steve Fulop. Extraordinary special education needs to be at the state level. When I left the Senate, we were funding it completely. Now it's back to where it was, so it's not working. But most importantly, before we decide about how we're going to pay this, how about if we get the cheapest price? We need to make all school districts pre-K to 12. No more K to 2s, no more K4s, no more K6, no more K8s. Because that's where you're paying an extraordinary amount of money for education. By the way, those sending districts to go to the regional high school, they don't teach the same curriculum. They buy different books, they buy different software. It is so inefficient what we have right now. And people don't want to change because it's home rule. We're not talking about closing your school down. We're not. We're saying you're not going to have an administration. You'll have a principal in the building.
Josh Gottheimer.
I agree with Steve that we've got to get the administrative costs down. We've got more superintendents than we have mayors. We've got to get more educators in the classroom to teach our kids. Then, of course, you got another problem here. We really, really have to centralize, as both Steves actually said, we've got to centralize, and I think it's critically important for special education. We've got to take that off the locals because you have too many schools who don't want to take kids on because of the high cost of special education. And we're going to have to fight Trump each step of the way if he tries to mess with our Title I dollars, which is critically important. So that's also got to be a key part of our fight. We can get these administrative costs down. We can actually fix the school funding formula and help these schools that are being left behind, which I think is also critically important.
I keep these
30
people
seconds.
off my website. But at
30 seconds.
at the end of the day, I think we do need unified school districts. That's the key to this. Too many school districts. And I think we also paying for county schools as well. So we have to get this under control. We cannot fund districts with one school in them. Just like we can't support cities with 200 or 300 or 400 people in them. We have to pull back on all of this stuff. Shared service is a nicer way to put it, but ultimately we need to bring these school districts together. The infrastructure does not match the students. Toms River is complaining, but they lost 4,000 kids in the last 20 years with the same infrastructure, which is why their fees are going up, why their taxes are going up, and the state is giving them less dollars. They need more children through housing, or they need to combine their school districts with other schools. Diversity is actually the answer. We got to run away from Trump and his craziness and add more diversity.
Steve Sweeney, you wanted 30 seconds, then back to Micah Rasmussen.
And listen, this is, I started talking about extraordinary special education, but it's actually very personal for me. How many times have you heard people say, 3 families with kids with disabilities moved in the neighborhood? There goes our school budget. It makes me insane when I hear that because, I didn't want to have a child with a disability. I'm thrilled and I love my child. But I had dreams for my daughter and my son. They're not going to be the same dreams. But children with disabilities have every single right to expect a quality education so that kid can live its fullest potential. We got to look beyond the disability. We got to look beyond when you see a person looks differently and see that there's a person. And that person deserves the opportunities as anyone else. And that's why this is very important that we did it. I did it when I was the Senate president, and I'm going to do it again when I'm the governor.
Mayor Baraka, you criticized Congresswoman Sherrill for saying one of the ways to address the persistent racial wealth gap is third grade literacy. As a former principal, do you believe there's a correlation between reading proficiency and higher lifetime earnings?
No, I think wealth and reading, third grade reading, have nothing to do with each other, or Donald Trump wouldn't be rich, right? The reality is, wealth and income has nothing to do with each other, right? My income, I can't pass my income down to my children, but I can pass my businesses, I can pass my home, I can pass my real estate down to my children. So slavery and slave labor, right, that we gave to people to create their wealth was passed down from generation to generation to generation. That's what's created the wealth gap, the lack of home ownership and the lack of capital for small businesses, not third grade reading levels. Should we improve third grade reading levels? Absolutely. Can it help us get better paying jobs? Sure. But you can actually graduate from high school and not have a college degree and get a better job outside of high school with a high school degree than you get from a college degree. So we have to just be clear on what we're talking about. We have to know the difference between income and wealth. And that's really what I was saying, that the wealth gap has nothing to do with our literacy scores. It has more to do with systematic oppression in this country.
All right, we appreciate Mikey Sherrill. You're going to unite. We really appreciate the passion in the audience, but we've got to try and limit our applause to no applause. Mikey Sherrill, you have 45 seconds.
Thank you. Obviously, when I was addressing the wealth gap in the state, I was talking more broadly than simply third grade reading. But I do think, and I know you've agreed with me historically, Mayor Baraka, that third grade reading scores are critically important to a student's success going forward. That is an inflection point. That's where students can either go on to do their homework at home in science and math, or they can't read that homework. So I don't think we really disagree here. I think we actually believe that there is a huge problem with systemic racism in this state. And then third grade reading is simply a separate issue on which kids are getting a good education in the state. And sometimes we say we have the best education system in the nation, but in too many cases it's by zip code here.
I think Mayor Fulop, you also had some concerns that you raised about the third grade literacy being brought up? No, you did not?
No.
Okay, all right, you want to respond?
I think
To
comment
either,
on that.
do you want to respond to either?
No,
argument?
I think the points were both well made by both the Congresswoman and the mayor. I think it's fine.
Maybe we're done.
Thanks.
How about that?
Next
David,
question.
you-
Are we going over to David? David?
There was a moment.
That's your moment.
That was the moment.
That was the moment. Congratulations, everybody.
Should we end here,
And
David?
on to the Republican.
Should we end here?
I'll start with Mayor Baraka. One of the things that municipal officials complain about, and they do it on a bipartisan basis, is the uncertainties of a school formula and their inability to plan long-term until they wait for the legislature and the governor to reach a budget deal. Is that a valid concern? And if you think it is, how will you fix it?
It is a valid concern, but more of a concern is healthcare. We don't know what the healthcare costs are going to be before we balance our budget because healthcare costs go up arbitrarily because insurance companies and hospitals make deals, which is why we need reference-based pricing. I also think that the budget should be done earlier, right? That we need to have a 3-year kind of forecast of budgeting on a state level and bring the legislative branch in and the outside body in to solve for the things that we know we're going to have to pay for. One of them is pensions. Another one is schools, right? The other one is property tax relief. All of those things that we know are going to cost the state, we need to forecast those ahead of time so we can give municipalities the ability to figure that out way before the time that they have now.
I want to add that it is a problem in the state that some of the municipalities operate on a calendar year and some of them operate on a fiscal year, and it creates a lack of transparency or clarity around what type of money you're getting from the state. And I do think there needs to be consistency around that. It would help municipalities tremendously to budget year after year.
Steve?
Thanks. I think this just reflects of how frustrating the whole system is for families. You got 564 municipalities around the state. They each have different rules, right? Their taxes, the property taxes on families are changing all the time. Other taxes come in, the state steps in and raises taxes. Now they're looking at a budget where they want to actually add a new tax for recreational activities like going to a go-kart or going bowling. Like, people need certainty, and people are so, everywhere I go, they're saying to me, I can't figure this out. I don't know how to make a budget because my healthcare costs, as Ross said, keep going up. Everyone's costs keep going up everywhere they look. We've got to give people a break, which is why I've been so focused of lowering costs, whether it's childcare costs, which keep soaring, or taxes, which keep going up. People need certainty, so do our municipalities, but the people who work so hard, they need to know how they're going to pay their next bills, and raising their utility bills suddenly 40% in 1 year is criminal. How, if you're on a fixed budget, like, how are you supposed to afford that?
Senator, I know you're next. I just want to ask a quick follow-up, if you maybe incorporate into your answer. You've been there. You've done a lot of state budgets. Yeah. What's a better mousetrap for timing on when to do a state budget and how much time you should?
David, I'm pretty happy right now because I talked about school consolidations and people up here agree with it now. I talked about multi-year budgeting for years and we're all agreeing with it. That's a good thing because we're starting on a better path. Look, give Phil Murphy credit. He fully funded the formula. Honestly, no one ever dreamed in our lifetimes we would see the funding formula fully funded. So you can move the time of when you want to do it, but the formula is not broken. It needs to be tweaked and adjusted because what I learned in the legislature is when you pass something, too often you walk away from it, you say it's done, we don't need to look at it anymore. Well, every 5 years you should take a look to make sure it's accomplishing what it should be doing.
Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
So my point is, honestly, we did a good job with the school funding. Mayor Baraka said it. In one community, I think it was Tom's River, they got 4,000 less kids. You know what they're mad about? They're not getting the funding for the 4,000 kids they don't have.
Right.
That's the problem we have with school funding. We finally fixed it. And what we need to do is, I say to people that get mad at me, I say, what's wrong with 100% funding for 100% of the kids? I think we accomplished something.
Steve Fuller.
I just want to go back and say that I think that you'd be hard-pressed to find a mayor in the state of New Jersey that thinks that the structure of budgets is working well. It gets sunlighted days before it gets passed, the state budget, ultimately. And there should be some clarity around time so that the public can scrutinize it, dissect it, criticize it, and move forward from them. And I think that's consistent with best practices around the country.
Mikey Sherrill. Mikey Sherrill.
So, as somebody who's worked at the federal level on the fact that not having multi-year appropriations really is harmful to a lot of programs, I do like, what Senator Sweeney said about having a 2-year budget or having multi-year appropriations for certain areas. And I have to agree, too. The fact that we actually fully funded the school formula after years of not funding it and not running the formula has created a lot of disturbance in the system. That doesn't mean we don't fund our education system. It simply means that maybe we need to modernize certain areas of it. And as governor, I would create a percent change year over year so that it doesn't fluctuate more than a certain percentage, so that school systems know what they can depend on and aren't firing teachers at the end of the right before the school year starts, or coaches.
So we need a very specific formula for schools, and we need a very specific timeline for the budget process at the state level. And we need to intercede in healthcare. We need to intercede in hospitals and insurance companies through the Office of Healthcare Accountability and Transparency by creating reference-based pricing so we can stabilize the growth, the cost growth in healthcare, so we can actually budget for it in real time. If we was doing this ahead of time and we had this ahead of time, then we could budget the right way. We need to budget for schools based on English language learners, based on kids with special needs, based on diversity, and based on community schools. We need to have a model that tells cities how we're going to give you money based on the things that you have in your district, so they can either begin to get those things or solve for the reason why they don't have them.
Steve Sweeney. Josh.
But we do that. Just so you know, we actually do that. The timing, I agree, is rough. But that's what the school funding formula says. Like I said, we've got full funding for the first time in a long time recently. So people know when it's coming. The big problem we had is when we did S2 that everyone was complaining about, we said, hey, listen, you had 14 years to right size your schools. You did. You knew it was coming. You didn't do anything about it. So now you're going to complain that the state is being unfair. Every child getting 100% funding, not 150 and not 70, 100% funding is fair. And we did it, and it is fair.
Josh Gottheimer.
I just want to say what Steve's point is an important one. You've got some schools that are half empty and some schools that have too many kids, and they're not getting the same great education. We can fix these things, but it's all the bigger problem here is that it's just the same old. If we have to change the way we're running things because we're running a structural deficit of $2 billion. We keep falling further behind, and what do? We just keep raising taxes on folks and raising costs. We got to negotiate our healthcare costs for our state workers so they get great healthcare like they do in other states, but actually push the PBMs to lower the prices and actually go after them. We got to stop buying things the way we do as 564 municipalities. We don't buy things in bulk. We always pay retail instead of negotiating getting Costco prices. We have to reorient the whole system. This is just one way on the timing that we've got to fix it.
Okay, we're going back over to Micah Rasmussen.
Yeah, this is a question for Congressman Gottheimer. School vouchers, using public funds to send kids to private schools, are part of the federal reconciliation bill being considered by the House right now. Today, Politico said your position on vouchers is unclear. Can you make it clear?
Oh, sure. I'm totally against vouchers. Listen, I support public schools, but I also like what our state has done over the years with some of our parochial schools to make sure they get busing, they get good security and technology, and that we invest in our kids. I also believe that in all of our communities, every kid should get universal pre-K, no matter where they live, and we got to support all of our communities on that, and all-day kindergarten. These are things we should do for every child in New Jersey. We've got amazing schools. It's an amazing state. We got to help people and all of our children get a great education.
And then can I ask a follow-up for Senator Sweeney? What are the implications of a near-term federal voucher program for New Jersey students, parents, and schools?
Well, again, hopefully the federal government will stop it. Hopefully we can get our federal delegation to stop it. And it'll hurt funding for schools. Bottom line, it'll hurt funding for the schools. So we really have to pay attention to what's coming out of Washington. This is what we've been talking about. Listen, we talk about health care. I'm introducing something this week. It's called the Jersey option, because we're going to see Medicaid funding slashed. So what I plan on doing is creating a healthcare system that people can join, that the state will have a pool, a large pool, and people will be able to join and buy state health insurance, which will be cheaper and save people money. Because, listen, we got a lot of bad coming out of this administration, a whole lot of bad. And we got to get prepared for it. You know, I saw Van Drew said, I'll never vote to cut Medicaid. And now he's signaling he's good with it. You know, it's not okay what's going on here.
You know, we're beating that.
I agree with Senator Sweeney. Maybe we could push him all the way to Medicare for all now, because that's what we need. So I agree with him 100,000% for sure on that. I just wanted to put that on the record.
I'd like to put on the record that Van Drew already voted to cut Medicaid by $880 billion. Just
yeah, he did.
Throwing that out there.
When he signed a letter saying he would not do it.
I know you're right. I'm just
now they're
pointing
suddenly
out
trying to back off of it because we're
The
whacking them every
hypocrisy.
day about it.
I would just ask Congresswoman Sherrill, is there a way to reconcile the preferences of parents of students who go to parochial schools or want to go to parochial schools and the NJEA, or is this just a collision course? Is this unavoidable, right? You have a number of Catholic school parents are looking for this bill, supportive of this bill. Number of Jewish organizations are looking for this bill. We're just on a collision course here?
Well, I think it's the state's responsibility to fund robust public school education. And that's, you know, I understand that there are parents that want a specific education for their children, and that's wonderful, but that's not the state's responsibility.
Yes,
Steve Phillips.
I wanted to say that, you know, President Trump has redefined what's acceptable in public education, clearly with abolishing the Department of Education. And I think New Jersey needs to be more proactive with regards to constitutional amendments and legislation to protect New Jersey and define that we won't be vouchers, no religion, no outing children. Speaking to the values of New Jersey here, and I think what we're talking about here is that we are at risk because nobody's taken proactive steps yet to really define how education will look in the current world under President Trump. And I think we should be doing a better job around that.
Ross Baraka.
Right, so vouchers all the way around are wrong. And we have to be careful when we start having this conversation, a slippery slope to pay for one religious school and another religious school where religion begins to overshadow public education. Most Americans went to public school. They went to public school because public schools work, because it is a system where all of us have been educated, and some of us have been educated at very high levels because of public school. We have to make sure that we protect the Constitution of this country and the Constitution of the state of New Jersey. That's more important than anything. I didn't swear allegiance to any of these people. I didn't even swear allegiance to the Democratic or Republican Party. When I took an oath, they said that I swear allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of New Jersey, so help me God.
Steve Sweeney.
And listen, the federal government has already done great harm to education. They cut $1 billion for mental health. You know, our kids went through a lot, especially through COVID. They went through one hell of a lot. Now we got kids that need help. And you know, the state, we got a surplus. We got a $6 billion surplus. At some point, we're going to run out. We should use it for kids to make sure that they're getting what they need. We absolutely should. But at some point, again, hopefully we can scare a couple of these Republicans to start doing the right thing here. Because taking money away, mental health dollars away from children, that's messed up.
And if you notice, we're taking them to court and we're beating them. Just like we did this weekend. We should fight them on every one of these things where they screw with Jersey families or with our children. Going after Title I money and hurting kids with disabilities is ridiculous, right? But we've got to help all of our children in the state of New Jersey and take care of all of them. And I think that's really important. We've got an amazing state, and we can.
Micah, back to you.
This is a question for Senator Sweeney. At last week's debate, you said it's wrong to let school districts exceed the state cap on property tax increases. You said that they must regionalize and share services. But what do you say? We have a lot of regional districts in the state that are already sharing shelves full of services, right? Is there a third option for them besides cutting education or increasing property taxes?
Like, we're not talking about cutting education. It's time for the school districts to start streamlining. Listen, no one's done more in this area and spoke about this more than me over the years. Problem was I couldn't get support because everyone was afraid to touch this thing because it's like, oh my God, everyone's going to get mad at you. Well, if people want lower taxes, they're going to regionalize those school districts from the K-2s, 4s, 6s, and 8s to be regional school districts from pre-K to 12. You will eliminate a ton of administrative costs in all these school districts. But the thing that bothers me, listen, when you research and get into this thing, and I did, they don't teach the same curriculum. They don't. So these kids are all going up, getting ready for high school, and they're all learning differently. So how about if we start with, because we have too many schools, you got more superintendents than mayors, let's start shrinking. Start here. Start here. Yeah. Let's regionalize. You already have the regional high school that has every member where these kids are going to school, where they live, on their board. So, I don't apologize for trying to make it more affordable. If we continue, I said this earlier, if we continue doing what we're doing, I told you, taxes should have been $15,000 this year. It's 10. 10's too much. But if we're going to continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different outcome, that is insanity.
Steve
Yeah, I want to go back to this conversation around the school funding formula, because I think it's directly tied to this. Senator Sweeney is correct that if you allow municipalities to exceed the district, it will get abused, and you will find yourself in a predicament that we've been in 10 years ago with property taxes go sideways. But I think that you do need to revisit that school funding formula. How do you incentivize municipalities and school districts to do the right thing? And that needs to be the priority for the next governor.
One real quick thing. We did give them the ability to exceed. We said go to the voters. You know that, right? That was in the bill. You can exceed your cap. Yeah. Just ask the voters that live in that community for approval. Right. So we did that.
Micah, back to you.
Mayor Baraka, you said last week that healthcare or a discussion about education, cost of education has to begin with healthcare. What did you mean by that? What can we do about that?
The cost of education has to do with healthcare?
Yeah.
Well, I think all public employees have a healthcare problem, whether they're public school employees, or city employees, or county employees, or state employees. I think the healthcare system in America is broken, and the one in New Jersey is broken as well. That insurance companies and hospitals make deals. There's no transparency between that. That make the healthcare costs grow arbitrarily. We could go get the same procedure at two different hospitals, and it'll be wildly different costs based on the negotiation that they made. I think it's wrong that we should involve ourselves in that, and that's what reference-based pricing is. People keep talking about it in various ways, but it's really called reference-based pricing. We're going to say we're going to pay a certain amount above Medicare, and that's it. The federal government has already established what the price of these procedures would be. If we just went 150% above Medicare, we could save the state over $1 billion in a couple of years.
Mikey Sherrill.
I think we're really circling around the two things, and this is key, and everybody's pointing it out. The two key costs to our municipalities, and it's education and it's medical and health insurance. And we're seeing the costs just go out of control in both cases. That's why I think for the health insurance, we have to have more competition in the market. Right now, we have Aetna, but that doesn't even go statewide. So as governor, I'm going to make sure we have more competition in the market. Also making sure that we have an independent auditor over state health benefits plan to make sure that that the money that we get back goes back into the municipalities and driving down costs, and also ensuring we lower property prices. And then those PBMs, ensuring that we have really take on the pharmacy benefit managers. These are a group that most people don't even know about that can be responsible for raising drug prices up to 10 times.
Now everybody wants to weigh in on this. Steve Sweeney's next.
Listen,
Josh Gottheimer.
Mikey, I got to tell you, I know all about PBMs. I passed the first reverse auction bill in the nation. It saved the state $500 million a year. That's how much we were getting ripped off. I know PBMs very well. And that's why you got to hold their feet to the fire. A reverse auction is simply an eBay. It's not complicated. But that's how much they were ripping us off. So we have to continue to create a system that checks the cost. We did that, and I was proud that I did it.
Josh Gottheimer.
When you study this, what's crazy is that you realize the state doesn't really negotiate the way it should, and therefore it overpays for health care. You look at other states that get better care for their employees or their retirees. We overpay.
State is
We have
not
all this
involved in that.
bureaucracy, and then you have all of these towns, 564 municipalities, and many of them are actually negotiating their own health insurance for their workers separately. So it's not all pooled. So instead of buying in bulk, as I said, we pay Wawa prices instead of Costco prices for healthcare, for salt on our roads, and then what happens is all this gets fed into property taxes that are killing people. And we know that 41% of seniors are thinking of leaving because of the property taxes.
has no idea what
so
he's
we
talking
got
about.
we actually we got to change the whole system. It's insanity, as Steve said, just to keep doing this over and over again the way we're doing it.
I want to tie it back into your previous question about retention of teachers and attracting teachers. The current system is unsustainable because teachers after Chapter 78 are paying an exorbitant amount of their salaries towards healthcare. And the way to solve that is addressing Horizon directly. Horizon has an absolute monopoly on healthcare in New Jersey, and that's directly tied to the political system here in New Jersey, and that needs to change, creating competition there.
Listen,
The second thing is that you do have a unique phenomenon in New Jersey where you have hospitals consolidating at a very rapid pace and dictating healthcare outcomes to patients. And that should not be permitted. How they acquire doctors' offices, how they dictate where people can go. This has been something that is promulgated in the last 4 or 5 years at an exponential pace. And that needs to stop. Otherwise, you will never fix healthcare in New Jersey.
And I have to address this because I guess he wasn't paying attention, but I negotiated a new health care plan with teachers. It's called Chapter 44. It reduced the cost to teachers dramatically, reduced the cost to taxpayers dramatically, and I was very proud of that. So, look, we can say Chapter 78, but it doesn't exist for teachers.
So first, I don't want my health care from Wawa or Costco, but I mean, I agree that I agree that consolidation is a problem, and we need more competition. But we're still missing the boat here. Even if we had competition, the state is not negotiating these plans. So I don't know what he's talking about. The plans are being negotiated by the price of these plans are being negotiated by hospitals and insurance companies, which is why the governor has set up the Office of Healthcare Accountability and Transparency to involve himself in those negotiations. It just doesn't have any teeth. That's what reference-based pricing is. I know you won't take it, people won't take it from me, but maybe they can take it from somebody else. The reality is the way it's being negotiated now does not involve the public. We have to get involved in it and say, this is what we're going to pay, and we're not going to go above this, right? Period, and put some cost or measures on these insurance companies and these hospitals.
We're going over to Joey Fox for our next question.
So I'm going to close out the education section here with something that I think has loomed over a lot of your answers on this, which is the Trump administration and its guarantees or lack thereof of various federal funds. Trump has threatened to withhold school funds from school districts and colleges that go against his directives on, say, trans issues, on DEI, on things of that nature. So Mayor Phillip, I'll go to you. Do you think that that's a fight that you would want to have as governor, or would you advise these colleges and school districts to go along in order to protect their funding?
I absolutely think we should fight that fight for New Jersey values, demonstrate to the public that we stand for different things. We should use our state surplus to offset any reductions we have in dollars, and we should be passing legislation in Trenton that speaks to the transgender community, the Immigrant Trust Act, that speaks to our core values here that are different. We should absolutely be pushing back and never acquiesce or bend.
Senator Sweeney.
Donald Trump is a criminal, and he keeps breaking laws left and right. We need to band together with all the states around us that think the way we think and fight back. DEI is not the problem. The I in DEI is my daughter. Inclusion. This is insulting that we give people, this is something that was long coming to make sure people got chances. Now DEI is the problem? He's the problem, not DEI.
Congressman, I know, yeah.
I was going to say Jersey values, which I love that you're talking about now. Like, the bottom line, what Jersey values means is that you fight someone who messes with Jersey, with our families. This guy, Trump, is going to come in, as we know, as Steve just said, on everything and try to go after our dollars, try to go after reproductive freedom. He's going to do it on every front, and the job of the governor, which I'll do, is to fight him. So that whether he's messing with our dollars or messing with our values, we're fighting him every step of the way, and I think that's critically important.
Mike, and then we're going to go to break.
But one of the sources of funding that's been threatened is Title I, right? And Title I funds after-school tutoring in places like Newark. So I guess the question is, Mayor Baraka, should Newark be putting that money at risk while we're fighting these fights?
I think we're already at risk. I think, we're already in the crosshairs. And this kind of idea that we should moderate ourselves at this moral moment is wrong. It's like the other clergy asked Martin Luther King as he sat in the Birmingham jail in their letter for a call for unity. They said, we agree that this is wrong. We just don't agree that you should fight. It is ridiculous. We cannot sit around and let these people bully us and decide what our values are and what we should support and not support. We have to fight back. We have no other choice but to do that.
Mikey Sherrill, go.
We are facing the most corrupt president this nation has ever had. He's attacking people, he's attacking Medicaid, he's attacking the Department of Education. And what's worse than all of this is that he seems to be doing a lot of this where cruelty is the point. And that's why he's doing it, not to get any efficiencies or not to actually make the country better. And I tell you, if you work with him, it's like giving your money, your lunch money, to a playground bully. You give it to him on Monday, and he's not going to not take it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if you work with this guy, if you acquiesce, if you give up on your values so you can somehow gain a little traction today, you're going to find in the future that you've given up everything. You've given up your ability to run your town, your state, and you've given up the thing that makes this state so special. So I think what you're hearing from all of us is no, this is not a federal government you can work with.
All right, we're going to take another break. We're wrapping up on education right now. We're going to take a break before starting our next topic. We want you to stay with us for the New Jersey Gubernatorial Primary Debate presented by Uber, live from the Donald M. Payne Senior School of Technology here in Newark. Stay with us.
Everything is getting more expensive. Rent, groceries, insurance. Uber is essential to my passengers. Insurance has gone up. This is hard for people.
Join our fight to protect your access to affordable rides.
If you have chronic joint or back pain, this is probably where you spend your time. Might we suggest a better destination that's close to home? RWJ Barnabas Health, where orthopedic surgeons designed the surgical implants that are now used around the world, and where you'll be cared for by the same doctors that treat professional athletes and rising stars. Get back to what you've been missing. Orthopedic care. Do it right. Here, RWJ Barnabas Health.
Today, 52 million Americans own cryptocurrency.
We are the pioneers.
The visionaries.
The builders of a growing movement
With the power to democratize the old economic models.
And create a world economy of the people.
For the people.
And by the people.
We are
crypto. This is the moment for us to make our voices heard.
We are the catalyst that will create a new world.
With our numbers.
With our voices.
With our votes.
We are crypto.
Karen's about to retire. Here's what's going into her retirement.
There's us. She raised us on our own.
10 years as my roller derby wife.
Three schools she's opened.
She's a mother.
I think we turned out all right.
She's a friend.
Our mothers could tell stories.
She's a teacher.
She may be retiring, but she's not done.
I'm never gonna stop.
Retirement is the sum of your life's work. Now what? Get income for life and protect your life's work with Prudential.
Every child deserves a great public school that meets their needs. That's why many families take advantage of charter schools as an option that's free, public, and open to all. See what's possible. Find a charter school near you.
everything is getting more expensive. Rent, groceries, insurance. Uber is essential to my passengers. Insurance has gone up. This is hard for people.
Join our fight to protect your access to affordable rides.
If you have chronic joint or back pain, this is probably where you spend your time. Might we suggest a better destination that's close to home? RWJ Barnabas Health, where orthopedic surgeons designed the surgical implants that are now used around the world, and where you'll be cared for by the same doctors that treat professional athletes and rising stars. Get back to what you've been missing. Orthopedic care. Do it right. Here, RWJ Barnabas Health.
Today, 52 million Americans own cryptocurrency.
We are the pioneers.
The visionaries.
The builders of a growing movement
with the power to democratize the old economic models
And create a world economy of the people.
For the people.
And by the people.
We are crypto.
This is the moment for us to make our voices heard.
We are the catalyst that will create a new world.
with our numbers,
With our voices.
With our votes.
We are crypto.
Hello, I'm Verlanda Fox-Nixon, President and CEO of NRBP, the premier chamber of commerce serving the greater Newark region. Our mission is to strengthen the region's business community through connections, resources, and advocacy. From member-exclusive opportunities to public events and more, NRBP helps businesses of all sizes grow, engage, and succeed. Join us at NRBP, where business meets opportunity.
Karen's about to retire. Here's what's going into her retirement.
There's us. She raised us on our own.
10 years as my roller derby wife.
Three schools she's opened.
She's a mother.
I think we turned out all right.
She's a friend.
Our mothers could tell stories.
She's a teacher.
She may be retiring, but she's not done.
I'm never gonna stop.
Retirement is the sum of your life's work. Now what? Get income for life and protect your life's work with Prudential.
Welcome back. I'm Laura Jones, and we are live at the Donald N. Payne Senior School of Technology in Newark with the New Jersey Gubernatorial primary debate presented by Uber. Now, before we get back to our panelists and our final segment, we have another student question. This one comes from Alexis Pennycook of Rider University, and this question is going to go first to Raz Baraka, then Mikey Sherrill, on down the line. Over to you, Alexis.
Hello. For young voters such as myself, what policies or plans do you have to convince us to vote for you?
Say that again. I couldn't hear you.
For young voters such as myself, what policies or plans do you have to convince us to vote for you?
Well, thank you for that question. Right away, I think in Newark, we've already established 16 and 17-year-olds to give them the opportunity to vote so they can begin to engage in voting right now in the civic process as it begins. We also want to make sure that education is affordable. And that when people graduate from college, when they get a job, that housing is also affordable, that there's housing for you immediately, that if you want to raise a family, that you can afford to build a house or own a home in the state, that you also, the rent is also not killing you in the state as well, that we create pipelines so that kids can go right into the workforce immediately when they graduate from high school or graduate from college, that we work with our colleges and our institutions to prepare children for the workforce immediately. And so we need to put young people right into the workforce, make sure the state is affordable so they can own in the state of New Jersey, invest in their ideas, incubate their businesses, and at the same time get them engaged politically through civics by getting them to vote early on at 16 and 17. An 18-year-old, they should be automatically voting right away.
Mikey Sherrill.
Well, that's a great question because young people like you are the reason I'm running for governor. I have 4 teenagers right now, and the idea that we are not going to leave the world to them that I was able to grow up in, that they are not going to have the opportunities that I had, that somehow they aren't going to have the freedoms, that if they speak out against the government, they're going to be disappeared in the middle of the night. This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. And so that's why I'm fighting so hard against what we see coming from Washington. And I'm fighting to make sure New Jersey is a place you can live because honestly, I'm not sure what's going to go on in the other states as we see these constant attacks from the federal government. But if you're going to stay here, if you're going to live here in New Jersey, I'm going to fight to make sure you can afford a great education. We can stack credits so that if you get out of high school and you have to go to work right away, we can have certificate programs. We can make sure that you can go to community college and pay for it. Also driving down the cost of housing because right now too many young people can't afford to stay here. And finally, address our utility costs with clean power because our environment, the environment we are leaving to, the climate crisis has got to be faced right now because it gets worse every single day.
Steve Sweeney.
Well, we need to start winning a few fights in Washington at some point. I'll start with that. But listen, we have to make New Jersey affordable for you, so that you have a future here, that you can buy a house, that you can raise a family, that you can actually live here. Right now, you can't afford to buy a house. The largest growth, demographic growth in New Jersey are seniors right now, right? The smallest one are young people. They are moving out of the state because they can't afford to get their life started. So creating policies that will actually start to give kids a chance to say, hey, listen, I'm going to be able to buy a house. They're listening. They're doing something. We need to do something now to give confidence in young people.
Josh Gottheimer.
Thanks for that question. I have a 15-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old boy, and I think about this all the time of can they afford to be able to stay in Jersey? And I talk to people everywhere I go, and they say my kids, when they graduate, are leaving because rents are so expensive, up 33% in the last few years. One of the major papers in Jersey wrote recently that to get a middle-class house costs you need to make at least $161,000 a year. How can people coming right out of school afford that, whether they're going to a trade or going to community college, which I think we should help kids who can't afford pay for it? How are they going to be able to do that if we don't figure out a way to get costs down, to get taxes down, and to get rents down, which is why I'm giving young people a rental rebate so that you can afford to actually pay your rent and stay in Jersey. We invest so much in you. I got such a great gift to be able to grow up here and go to public school here and stay here. I want to make sure everybody gets that shot.
Steve Phillip.
Alexis, first I want to say thank you for that question, echo the sentiments there, and it is a key part of my campaign, and young people involved is a key part of the Democratic Party's potential for success come November. I'm proud to have the support of the College Democrats of New Jersey and the College Democrats of America, and it was a competitive process because I could articulate the vision of what New Jersey should be for those young people. Of course, housing is a key part of it. How do you make college affordable for these people and rethink higher education in New Jersey? Talking about AI and artificial intelligence, how that will change the employment aspect for the state of New Jersey and the country, and what governor or gubernatorial candidate is thinking about how do we redefine some of that stuff, and we've done that. And then finally, I would just talk about the environment. We've been very aggressive on this in New Jersey. And what I hear most often in Jersey City, and what I hear most often is that young people are concerned about what the environment and sustainability and climate change will look like for them. And they want a governor that's unapologetic about climate change, not bridging the gap with fossil fuels and all of this wishy-washy talk that is very clear, saying that I understand that we want to leave the world and New Jersey a better place. And I think I stand alone on that, and we've articulated all that.
Alexis, thank you very much for your question. We appreciate you. Our final round, we're going to be focusing in on on affordability and taxes. David Wildstein of the New Jersey Globe, he's going to take the lead on this portion.
Thanks. Congressman Gottheimer, I'll start with you. Jersey's reliant on federal aid, on grants, on loans, and this potentially creates a choice between budget cuts or tax increases. If the federal government dramatically reduces funding. If you were governor, and these are some tough choices to make, if you as governor had to cut state spending, can you identify a single program that costs over $100 million a year out of a $58 billion budget, $100 million a year that you'd be willing to cut?
Well, David, to your point, we're actually the second worst in the country, Jersey, in terms of what we get back from Washington. Since I'm in Congress, I'm up 357% in my district for cops and firefighters and roads and schools. But the bottom line is we, as a state, are not, which is why I'm going to appoint a chief clawback officer to fight every day to get more of what we get back. Rhode Island gets 48% back more than we do, which makes no sense because we're not fighting hard enough to get these dollars back. And whatever dollars are there, we should get more of them to New Jersey for our taxpayers to help our families. We also, of course, need to stop getting it stuck to us by New York, who takes far too much on income taxes and doesn't give us what we deserve here in Jersey for our families. If you actually work in New Jersey, but for a New York company, they take the income tax. That's $4 billion a year. So what I would focus on, David, as my tax cut plan lays out at joshforjersey.com, is actually rethinking how we get more money back to Jersey so we can give people tax cuts. And we got to keep fighting Washington, as I've been doing, to make sure they back off of trying to mess with our budgets. And by the way, we've been taking them to court. We've been successful. We're going to fight it every single day.
I'm trying to figure out why does he have to wait?
Sure.
Well, I have to say, before we get to the responses, I just want to go back to the question, which a bunch of you will answer. Right. Can you name a program that you're willing to cut? Give me something significant that if there had to be draconian cuts in the state budget, what would you cut?
I'm not accepting the premise of your question that there's going to be draconian cuts. The point is, a governor, as I'm going to be, is going to fight back against it each step of the way so we can have what we have, which is great for people, but actually just run things smarter and better here in Jersey without messing with our programs. Like New York and California have done, they've actually done efficiency studies and are running things better. You don't have to make that. It's a false choice, David. You can actually do great by people, fight to get more back to Jersey, go after tax cheats and other changes we got to make to run the state better and more efficiently, as we've been talking about all along. Go after New York, who's been sticking it to us with our income taxes. That's $4 billion a year that should come back to Jersey, and not accept this premise that we have to actually gut things in Jersey. We got to fight to protect them, and as governor, that's your job and what I'm going to do.
Well, it's confusing because I'm trying to figure out why they have to wait to become the governor to get more money back from the government, because that's their job as congresspeople. Congresswoman
Really,
Sherrills and Congressman Gottheimer supposed to get more money for us. So I'm sorry, but he brought that up. I mean, so obviously he put his foot in his mouth. You cannot.
Totally not. Actually,
he should
Ross,
be doing that now. He can't wait to become the governor. Should not wait to become the governor to do that for us today. That's his job today. The reality is that we need to cut healthcare costs by stopping the spending to these insurance companies and these hospitals. That's number one. Number two, we need to repeal these Christie tax cuts, over $15 billion that we've given them, and Democrats have not clawed back over a decade that we've been giving money away, that we need to bring that back. I reject the premise that we have to cut Medicaid, that we have to cut services, that we have to cut things for working families in this state. We should be investing in working families and making millionaires pay their fair share.
Josh Governor, you're getting 30 seconds, and I see others want to respond as well. 30 seconds to you.
Mayor, just to fact check you, in my district, because we've been working with our mayors, we're up 357% since I'm in Congress.
Well, you're saying you being a governor. We're talking about the whole state here. We're not talking about your district.
Mayor,
we're talking about the whole state. We're not talking about your district.
If I can finish, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm talking about.
So I'm going to bring what I have done in my district in northern Jersey to the whole state. I can't speak to what you've done in Newark and what you failed to claw back to Newark. Your property taxes are up 23% since you're mayor. Why don't you explain that? You've raised taxes on hardworking
Bergen County has the highest property taxes in the entire state of New Jersey. What are you talking about?
Can I answer the
30
question?
seconds, Mr. Baraka.
Can I answer the question?
Well, I need to give him 30 seconds.
Actually, Laura, I'd love to hear an answer to the question.
I actually did answer the question.
Okay.
Right. I actually answered the question. I talked about what I would cut. period. Healthcare costs and bringing money back from billionaires. That is answering the question. If I didn't answer it the way he likes it, that's something different. What I did say, however, is that the Congress people's job today, I don't care how much he deflects and comes up with these Republican talking points, he forgets he's at a Democratic debate.
Wait, so getting
not
money
a
back to
Republican
Jersey
one.
is a...
At the end of the day, his job today,
Exactly. And I've
today his
succeeded
job
in getting
is
it
to bring
back.
money back to the state of New Jersey. That he's failed. If you look at his
Exactly.
record,
Okay.
you
Steve
should
Phillip,
see
then
that
Steve
in-
Sweeney.
I mean, look at the facts,
Steve
Mayor.
Phillip,
Up
then Steve
357% to the 5th District of Jersey.
The audience
We could
can't
do this
hear when you're talking
across the
over each
state.
other.
I
Steve Phillip.
don't understand. In the
Steve
last debate, they were constantly touching each other. Now they're fighting with each other. I mean, I don't get it. But let me just say something. I think number one is you need wholesale change on this Christmas tree item process at the end of the budget process. That's $1 billion right there. And that is unacceptable. And Republicans point to that. I think there's validity to that. Number two is the entire tuition assistance grants for higher education is a warped, perverse system that incentivizes universities to raise their tuition every year because of how New Jersey funds it. It's a conversation that we need to have. And then finally, I would tell you, beyond the healthcare and raising taxes on the billionaires, the reality is that Rutgers is a huge line item that has lost its way with a priority around football instead of education. And I think we need to have a conversation around that.
Steve Sweeney, you're next.
Again, we need a better budget process, number one, so we know what we have and what we can't afford. But, you know, to say we're going to continue to, I keep repeating this, we're going to continue to deliver government the way we're delivering it, and we're expecting to come up with savings. Listen, there's no one on the stage more than I that did shared services, that reduced costs to governments, that created countywide EMS, countywide tax assessment, countywide 911. You know, so like I said, there's a way to do this, but you're not going to always be popular when you do it. Now, I got to agree with the mayor. Listen, with all due respect, and I like both of my Congress people here, this is a federal issue. We need to start winning some fights. We haven't won yet. We only got to get two. We only got to get two Republicans to start moving in a different direction, and we'll start winning again.
David, back to you.
So let me go to another affordability issue. Electricity bills are growing like gangbusters. You're hearing this all the time on the campaign trail. One of your possible Republican opponents, Mayor, I won't mention his name.
Thank you.
But one of your Republican opponents has said he'll get rid of the Board of Public Utilities. He'll clean house at the BPU senior staff level. Senator Sweeney, and then we'll go to Mayor Fulop. Senator, do you agree with that unnamed Republican?
No, I don't agree with him. I think we need to professionalize the Board of Public Utilities to make sure everyone on the Board of Public Utilities is an expert, number one, in energy costs. Number two, it's the energy policies that are driving the cost, unfortunately. We shut down too much power in New Jersey before wind came along, and with President Trump, it's not here. So, listen, I'm the one candidate. I wrote the RGGI law, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. I wrote the solar legislation to create solar. I created the wind legislation, and I did the ZECs, the zero emission credits, because I remember Congresswoman Cheryl saying she's the only one who talks about, nuclear. I'm the one that kept nuclear plants from closing. The electric costs in this state, it's 43% of our energy, so policy matters. And no one up here on the stage might say it, but I'm going to say it. We still need gas. We can't afford all this clean energy. We need more power. And guess what? Once we get more power generated, New Jersey used to export energy to other states. We were the envy. We generated more than we needed, and then we sent it and sold it. We're now relying on the PJM. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to create jobs here in New Jersey so that we can actually put people back to work.
Mikey Sherrill, you had a follow-up, and then Steve Phillip. Mikey Sherrill had her hand up first, and then I'll go to Steve Phillip.
I think he called on
So
me first,
I
but-
totally agree.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Yeah, you do. Okay, yeah. I just want to say really quick on the.
I don't know. The ref made a call. I got to live with it. I saw
David,
Mayor
I
Fulop
was
first.
going based on your lead, David.
Yeah,
I was
but
going
let's
based
not
on your
waste
lead.
time arguing about the call. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sure.
So Mayor Fulop and then
No,
Congressman Cheryl.
I defer to the Congresswoman.
Done. I'll take the deal. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I think what we're looking at is, yes, we need a more professionalized BPU. The understanding that they had of what PJM was going to do and the fight they needed to have prior to now, I think we've seen in states like Pennsylvania where Governor Shapiro has taken on the PJM. We need to see a little more of that here in New Jersey. And then we know that when we're not producing our own power here, we're buying it on the market, and that is coal power and that is fracked power from Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So we need to up our production here. Immediately, we need to move into solar. We have gone down by 25%. We had initial investments in solar, but our solar increase has gone down by 25%, while other states have increased solar by 150%. We need to build out on capped landfills and state property, and then, yes, long-term nuclear. That's how we're going to truly provide the power that we need here in this state while driving down carbon costs. But we really are going to need to have a more professional BPU if we're going to meet all of these goals.
All right, now to Steve Phillips, then to Ras Baraka.
Thank you. Let me start by saying I do think the BPU has lost its way, and you need more professionals there, and I think Senator Sweeney is correct about that. I do not believe that we need more natural gas plants here, and I think when you make a commitment to natural gas, you're basically making a commitment for 5 years to construct it and for 50 plus years for it to exist, and you need to be realistic about climate change, and we need to lean in hard, even if it's a tough conversation. And then finally, the way that bills work and electricity works in New Jersey is essentially a flat tax across the board. And we should really be looking at those data centers and AI generators that really put the strain on the system, and they should not be paying the same amount as mom and pop ultimately should. And this rate structure should factor that into that.
Ras Baraka was next. Then we'll go to Josh Gottheimer and Mikey Sherrill.
First, I disagree. The BPU needs to exist. We just need to stop stacking it with political appointees and put some real professionals on a BPU that are looking out for taxpayers and ratepayers and working class people. That's number one. Number two, we do need to have more robust solar in the state of New Jersey. In fact, there are bills in the legislature now that could be passed that would allow solar to begin to move forward. They're stuck in the legislature right now that we need to get out of the legislature so we can begin moving solar projects forward in this state. And I agree with the data centers that are coming up. They have a few on the zoning and planning boards in the city of Newark. We need to make sure that these guys are footing the bill and not the taxpayers in the state of New Jersey or the ratepayers in this state are footing the bill for these AI centers that are coming online, that we have to hold them accountable.
Josh Gottheimer.
The reality is that we know that this year alone, our utility bills are going to be up 40% for our families. That's crushing our families. It's a massive tax on people who are trying to already figure out how to get by. And we know it's a supply problem. We just don't have enough of it, whether it's to try to get new AI jobs or whether to actually power some of the housing we're trying to build where we know there's brownouts around the state and people can't even get enough power. Because what we've done is made this deal. We haven't gotten any new power supply thanks to the BPU and to this consortium that does the grid. We haven't gotten a new project approved since 21, which means that we don't have any more supply, and then we're buying the dirtiest stuff now from West Virginia, coal-powered. It's ridiculous. So we're going to need an all-of-the-above strategy. We're going to need all of it. Otherwise, people's bills will keep going up, and to me, that's totally unacceptable. We got to give people relief in their wallets, especially hard-pressed middle-class families who are already struggling. If we don't get more alternative energy, including natural gas and others, if we don't get an all-of-the-above approach and nuclear and biomass, we are going to be screwed.
All right, we're running heavy, so we're going to go to Joey for our next question before we go ultimately to closing statements. But go, Joey, go ahead.
So I'll go to Congresswoman Sherrill first on this one. Every year after the governor issues their budget proposal, state legislators add hundreds of millions of dollars worth of so-called Christmas tree items that go to benefit, individual projects in their districts. In this, broader budget process, as people think about good uses of taxpayer money, do you think that that's a practice that should continue in the state legislature?
I hate that practice. Unfortunately, there are several things in it that, the state really needs to pass, but I hate that practice. I would like to see that more in the budget. Legislatures start to do these workarounds all the time. I see it in Congress. We see it in Trenton. And so really having a no-kidding state budget where we can push everything in and come together as a state, along with our municipalities, along with our legislators, to come together on the vision of the state and the mission of the state and get a good budget passed as we drive down costs for people here is what I'll see as a governor.
So, Senator Sweeney, you've been directly involved in this, so I'm curious.
Yeah, listen, the problem with the budget process is it goes too late, gets to the very end, and all of a sudden, people don't even know what's in the budget that they're voting. I was proud to be able to start a budget process where people saw it sooner, and they could have input sooner with it. So, again, creating a process that's more transparent is very healthy. What's not healthy, I'll never forget, I asked Governor Corzine, I said, why do we do the budget on June 30th? Is that the rule? He said, no. I said, then why are we doing it? The sooner you do a budget, it's just you start the clock sooner. Start the clock sooner, then you can have more transparency where people can actually have a discussion and have debate on budgeting. Our budget process is so bad in the state of New Jersey. The Volcker Group gives us a D. The only reason we don't get an F is the Volcker Group doesn't give Fs. So what we need to do is multi-year budgeting and honestly get this stuff more transparent, do it sooner, and you'll have not as much of this outcome. We said this budget was going to be a huge problem, and guess what? It is a huge problem.
Mayor Phillip.
Yeah, I would just say, yes, the Christmas tree items are a problem. The entire structure of that is problematic. And I think if the public fully understood what was happening there, as well as this concept of senatorial courtesy, both of those two things to a normal person would seem ridiculous. And they definitely need to change. No question about it.
All right, we actually have one more time for one more question before closings, and Mike Rasmussen's going to take that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. No, David has one other. Micah, then David. All right, we're going to go to David.
We need
then.
a moderator.
We're going to David.
I'll tell you what, I apologize, Micah. We're running short. I'm going to go this before we go to opening statements. I went to a small neighborhood grocery store not far from this school on Friday, and I price compared costs of eggs with a supermarket in Livingston near where I went to school. And food is more expensive for people without money. It was 40% higher for people in Newark to buy eggs than it was for Livingston. How can you fix that? You're raring to go, but go. Mayor Baraka, go ahead.
Well, I think we have real laws against that. I think what happened is that we've allowed this idea of inflation to be used by corporations and individuals who have begun to be greedy, who've used this as an opportunity to price gouge. And our AG and the state needs to be heavy-handed on these individuals that are doing this. They need to partner with local government to begin to hold these people accountable who are driving prices up for working-class poor families in cities like Newark. We need to be very, very heavy-handed on this, right, and not give these folks a pass.
Congresswoman Sherrill.
This is something I've been working on because we know that competition in the market helps, but we also know that starting up grocery stores can be very, very expensive. And so often it's only the large chain grocery stores and not the mom and pops that have the capital to open up. And I think the state needs to have a state grant program to help bodegas and small grocery stores open up in neighborhoods, create competition in the market, and also address some of the problems we have with food deserts in the state.
Some of these people are just robbing us. Yeah. I mean, that's clear. It doesn't matter the competition. They're just robbing us. And we need to make sure that they're not robbing us.
If
That's
people
what we
had
need to do.
choice of where to go, they could drive prices down.
Well, there's a bodega on every corner.
Steve Sweeney's next.
This is a huge problem. There's a business, a poverty business. People prey on poor people all the time. It's not okay. And you know something? And because people don't have choices to get, especially some of these stores, we tried to do some things with bodegas, and some worked and some didn't. But most importantly, we've got too many food deserts in the state and in poor areas in the state. Creating more opportunities for people to get healthy food. I'm saying there's people that pray when it comes to food, when it comes to housing, and you know something? The poor people are the ones that pay more than the middle-class suburban people. It's not okay, and we should crack down on that. And I think you could with the Attorney General.
Yes.
Josh Gottheimer.
Exactly. There are gougers in all these hard-pressed communities that go after poor people who, whether it's groceries and it's eggs, whether it's healthcare, whether it's childcare, and it's the redlining of prices in grocery stores, and it's totally unacceptable. And as governor, I'll have shoppers who go in and check this out. Price gouging is illegal. You can't do it to people, whether it's during a pandemic, or it's during an egg crisis, or any time. And we got to make sure we fight it, we enforce it. And as Steve pointed out, you also have to make sure there actually are grocery stores everywhere across the state, because there's plenty of places where there's not a single grocery store to find. And how are you supposed to feed your kids? The same way you've got schools refusing to provide free school lunch and school breakfast to kids who need that too, and that's their only meal. And why? Because they don't like the stigma. Well, it's time we reverse that, and as governor, I will.
Right. More grocery stores are not the answer to food desert still, by the way.
I think that there's a couple things. I think we agree that the Attorney General needs to be strong and price gouging is unacceptable. I think in the short term, the Economic Development Authority for the state of New Jersey needs to be more aggressive with grants and incentivizing new developments to include supermarkets, predominantly in census tracts that tend to be poorer. And I think longer term, the solution is obviously linked to mass transit. You need more transportation access, more bus access in poorer areas. You've seen New Jersey Transit moving actually in the opposite direction. And longer term, the way that you're going to confront this challenge is creating more access and opportunity, and that comes with mass transit.
Right. The reality is that these guys are missing These guys are missing the boat as usual. The reality is you could put more supermarkets in these places. Access to the supermarket does not necessarily diminish food deserts. The cost of the food is the problem. People's wages and people price gouging. You can have a bunch of supermarkets in a place. If people don't have access, whether it's transportation or access because of the cost. The cost is what's driving people away. We have a bunch of farmers in the Garden State. We have not learned how to subsidize these mid-sized and small farmers to get food to communities, the 50 communities that we call food deserts across the state of New Jersey. We got to get food to these places and subsidize people like the Community Food Bank of New Jersey and give food at subsidized prices to bodegas and supermarkets so they can sell it at a rate that people can afford. It's not just about I can take a bus to a supermarket. If I can't buy the eggs in the supermarket, it don't matter if I walk there, took the bus or the taxi.
Okay. Hard to believe that we've already come to almost 2.5 hours. Mayor, I'm so sorry. We are almost at 2.5 hours, and it is time now for our closing statements. Each candidate is going to have 90 seconds. We determined the order by a random draw. Mikey Sherrill, you're going to be first, followed by Josh Gottheimer, then Ras Baraka, and Steve Sweeney, then Steve Fulop. So, Mikey Sherrill, you have 90 seconds.
Thanks so much. I often start off an opening or closing statement reminding people of my background. I think these guys are incredibly sick of it. But I do that because that shows you who I work for, who I've always fought for. I wanted to serve this country from the time I was in 5th grade, when I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, when I wanted to fly. And I was told at that time, you probably won't do it, by my father, because he said he didn't think the Naval Academy took women, and he didn't think the Navy allowed women pilots. And I knew, because I knew this country, that I could figure it out, and that I could have that opportunity. And that's why I graduated with the first class of women eligible for combat on ships and aircraft. So that's the change this country can make. That's the hope we want to give to young kids. And I got 4 of them. And right now, the future looks pretty bleak to me. Because a lot of the things that I've seen happen over the past 30 years, the opportunities I've seen created since that time I graduated, are being rolled back every single day. So as governor, I'm going to fight for you. It's who I've always fought for. I'm going to make sure that our kids have better opportunities here in New Jersey, no matter what it takes. Even if the federal government is attacking us at every turn, I'm going to make sure that we have effective leadership in this state. It's what I've always done. It's what I've always fought for, and it's why I'm going to keep fighting. I can also bring out the vote because we know what's at stake. We know Jack Ciattarelli said he's going to doge this state. We know he said he's not going to stand up to Trump when Trump tries to cut Medicaid. We also know he said he's proactively going to cut funding for Planned Parenthood, and he's going to have an abortion ban in place. So we know the stakes are high. If we don't want the state of New Jersey to look a lot like what's going down in Washington, D.C., then we need new leadership. And as governor, I'm going to provide it. Thanks so much.
Josh Gottheimer, your closing statement. We're running out of time. Josh Gottheimer, I've got to ask the audience to please refrain from clapping. Josh Gottheimer.
What's very clear tonight is that we can't afford to do the same old in Jersey. If we do, we know what's going to happen. Costs are going to keep going up. Taxes are going to keep going up, and families will keep leaving. They're already leaving. 41% of seniors are telling us they can't afford to stay. Our kids are leaving, and our families are saying, I'm getting crushed by childcare costs, which are second highest in the country, by property taxes, by food prices. Everywhere they look, and the utility bills, they're getting killed. We need a fighter who's willing to do things differently. Not the same old, who's willing to break a few eggs, or I guess they're to break glass because eggs are too expensive. Someone who's willing to actually take on the system. And as your governor, that's what I'm going to do. I've got a long record of solving the toughest problems and being willing to take on the status quo. I'm going to cut your property taxes by 15%. I'm going to give seniors a bonus every year if they stay here. We're going to cut rents, and we're going to give middle-class families a tax break on their income taxes. It's not impossible. We've done it before as Democrats. They told me it was impossible when I ran for Congress in a seat that hadn't been won by a Democrat in 84 years. We can't afford to lose this November against Chitterelli. We can't afford to have another Trump acolyte in this state. It will crush us. It will hurt our families. We got to talk about how we're going to make life more affordable. I've got the plans to do it. I want your support. I would love to have your support because we're going to do things differently in Jersey so you can afford to stay, your kids can afford to stay, and seniors can afford to be here too. It's an amazing state. I love it, and I want you to be able to afford it.
Russ Baraka.
Thank you. I think I served my country as well. I served it by making sure kids stayed alive and they finished college and made it to a career. I pulled many families out of poverty. I fought the wealth cap and made sure the Constitution was real to every American that lived in the city of Newark. We having this discussion about electability, and they always ask us, will you vote for whoever's the nominee? And everybody says yes, but I don't really believe that because there are people up here on this stage that are stoking fear out in the community. They're saying that they're the only ones electable and nobody else is electable. I think if all of us support whoever is the nominee, that person is in fact electable. And I'm gonna tell you why they say I'm not electable. 1, because I'm from Newark. 2, because I'm too progressive. And 3, because I'm too black. Well, I like being from Newark. I like being from Newark. As a matter of fact, I think because you're closest to the problems, you're closest to the solutions. I also like being progressive. I like being progressive and standing on my progressive values. I think that's what brings us together. And I can't do nothing about being black. God made me beautiful and amazing on purpose. At the end of the day, I come from a long line of African-American women who fought hard and prayed even harder so I could be on this stage here today. They didn't think I would be on this stage 20 days out from the primary, that we couldn't raise the money that we raised. But New Jersey is ready for the future. They tired of the old past. New Jersey is ready for something different, not the weak playbook of the Democratic Party that is getting us in a situation that we're in over and over and over again. They ready for Ras Baraka. They ready for the first African-American governor of this state. They're ready for change. They're ready for reimagination, and they're ready for me. Vote Ras Baraka, June 10th, Democrat for governor.
Steve Sweeney.
You know, you realize how much I hate following him? Because he is a great speaker. Look, New Jersey is New Jersey's an amazing state that is just too expensive because there's been a lot of bad decisions made over the years. I'm the one candidate that I think you've heard so far from even the people up on the stage that got some really good ideas. Because we do. If you look at my builder's agenda, we talk how we start to right New Jersey, how we create the housing that's needed right away. 5 years, 200,000 houses. We have crumbling infrastructure, creating jobs. Energy, coming up with a policy that is all the above. You can deny, I don't want this one, I don't want that one. If you don't have them all in a basket, you got what we're getting right now. Extreme pricing in energy. I'm the candidate that understands the inside and out of Trenton. You know, you always hear, we need an outsider to change things. Well, you know what happens? They come there and after 2 years they figure it out. Now they're running for re-election and unfortunately it's too late. Look, if you want to fix what's broken, I have a history of fixing broken policies in the state of New Jersey. And I'm asking for your support to be the next governor of New Jersey. Thank you.
Steve Phillip, you're next.
Yeah. Look, I've tried for the past 2 hours to talk in specifics about what I would do, whether it's changing Rutgers or congestion pricing or the turnpike widening, because I think people in New Jersey deserve that sort of vision. And I think only with that sort of vision can you win in November. If you think about what the Republican nominee is going to say, I'm going to start there because everybody says that they need to be an outsider or elect me. But the reality is that I have been in an unapologetic lane from the beginning to change New Jersey. I've talked about what is wrong in a different way than anybody else. And I'm going to tell you what the Republican nominee is going to say every day is that this person, the Democrat, is 4 more years of Phil Murphy. You like your energy bill? 4 more years of Phil Murphy. You like your taxes? 4 more years of Phil Murphy. And we haven't elected a Democrat in more than 50 years. And if you are an establishment candidate, if you are a creature of the Democratic establishment here in New Jersey, if you have the same consultants and the same lobbyists and the same message, you are dead on arrival in November because you can never walk away from that. And that baggage is tough to starting point to move independent voters. It is not going to be only a referendum on Donald Trump because independent voters in the state of New Jersey, a lot of them voted for Donald Trump. The people that don't like Donald Trump are sitting here in the room, and there's plenty of us, and we agree on that, but they're in our camp already. You need to move independent voters. You need to move Republican voters with a clear vision of what New Jersey looks like. If you are an institutional establishment, same old candidate, you're dead come November because the state of New Jersey will not be looking for that. And that's the reality of the conversation. So I ask you to think wisely on June 10th because it is true. It is a tough election that the entire country will be watching, and it will not be an easy election. So please think about the validity of what I'm saying on who and how and what type of message is most effective come June 10th and then come November. Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of tonight's New Jersey gubernatorial Democratic primary debate presented by Uber. Streaming is sponsored by Stand With Crypto and sponsored by RWJ Barnabas Health and Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'd like to thank our panelists, David Wildstein, Micah Rasmussen, Joey Fox. Also, thank you to our candidates for joining us, Raz Baraka, Mikey Sherrill, Steve Sweeney, Josh Gottheimer, Steve Fulop. Thank you all. And thank you to our audience, even though you didn't listen to all of our rules all the way through. And we thank you so much at home for watching. We're going to be back here Tuesday night with the Republican candidates. We're just stay tuned because there's more. We've got a post-show debate coming up as well as our coverage of the press gaggle with each of the candidates. You're going to hear more from them. I'm Laura Jones. Have a great night.